Do you remember when the answer to almost anything you could name sat waiting in the cabinet? A blue jar of Vicks, a brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide, a yellow box of baking soda, a jug of plain white vinegar. That was the whole toolkit, and it handled more than most of what fills the store shelves today. Let's walk back through 100 of those old-time cabinet hacks, the ones worth wanting back. The open box of baking soda in the back of the refrigerator. Start with the one every kitchen had. An opened box of baking soda, torn along the top, standing quietly on the back shelf next to the milk. It never got cooked with. It just sat there, doing its work in silence, keeping the icebox from smelling like last night's fish and this morning's cut onion all at once. Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate, a mild base, and most of the smells that turn a refrigerator sour are acidic. The powder meets those odors in the air and neutralizes them instead of just masking them with perfume. That is the difference between it and the plug-in gadgets that came later. Arm & Hammer built a whole reputation on this one habit, and by the time you were a child, it was simply what you did. Every few months, your mother pulled the tired box, dumped it down the drain to freshen that too, and set a fresh one in its place. The cost was almost nothing. A box ran a few cents and lasted a season. The only catch was remembering to change it, because a box left too long stopped pulling its weight and became just another thing crowding the shelf. Today, people spend real money on charcoal filters and scented discs that do the same job with more packaging and a bigger price tag. The little cardboard box did it better, and it never once needed batteries. Did your family have a set day for swapping it out? Or did somebody just notice the smell and finally reach for a new one? Cleaning the windows with vinegar and yesterday's newspaper. You could always tell the houses where somebody knew the trick. The glass had no streaks, no filmy haze, just a clean shine that made the yard look sharper through it. The secret was white vinegar cut with water in an old spray bottle, and a crumpled sheet of newspaper instead of a rag. Vinegar is about 5% acetic acid, and that mild acid dissolves the greasy film and hard water spots that a plain wet cloth only smears around. The newspaper mattered too. The paper was lint-free and slightly absorbent, so it lifted the liquid clean off the glass. Without leaving fuzz behind the way, a towel did. Grandmothers in every part of the country swore by it, and they were not wrong. The whole job cost pennies, and used something you were about to throw out anyway. There were two small drawbacks. The vinegar smell filled the room until it dried, sharp enough to make your eyes water on a closed-up winter day, and the newsprint could darken your fingertips before you were done, so you finished with gray hands. Neither one was enough to stop anybody. Today the store sells blue spray in a fancy trigger bottle for several dollars, and it does no better than the jug under your sink ever did. The glass came out just as clear, and the whole house smelled honest instead of chemical. Do you still catch yourself reaching for the newspaper instead of a paper towel when you clean a mirror? Number 98. The brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide on a skinned knee. Every childhood scrape ended the same way. You came in crying with gravel in your knee, and out came the short brown bottle from the bathroom cabinet. Your mother tipped a little onto the raw spot, and it foamed up white and stinging, and you watched it bubble like something alive. That fizz was the whole show. Hydrogen peroxide is water with an extra oxygen atom, and when it touches broken skin or blood, an enzyme in your body called catalase rips that atom loose, which is where the bubbling and the faint hiss come from. To a child, it looked like proof the medicine was fighting something. 3% household peroxide sat in nearly every medicine cabinet in America through the whole of the last century. Cheap and dependable. The first thing anybody reached for on a cut. Here is the honest part your mother could not have known. Doctors now say that same foaming action damages the healthy tissue trying to heal the wound, and most of them will tell you plain water or a little soap does a gentler job. So the ritual we all remember was not the best medicine, even though it felt like it. Still, the comfort was real. The sting told you somebody was taking care of it, and the bandage that followed made you brave again. Did the bubbling scare you as a kid, or did you lean in close to watch it work? Number 97. A paste of baking soda for a bee sting. Number 97 came out of the box on the worst afternoons of summer. You were running barefoot in the grass. You stepped wrong, and a bee got you right in the soft part of the foot. Before the crying got too far along, somebody stirred a spoonful of baking soda with just enough water to make a thick white paste and packed it right onto the sting. The relief was quick enough to stop the tears. Many stings leave behind an acidic irritant under the skin, and baking soda is a base, so the paste helped settle the burn while the cool, damp powder drew some of the heat and swelling out. Farm families and town families alike kept this trick close, because in the days before a drugstore sat on every corner, the kitchen was the first aid station. The good of it was that it worked fast and cost nothing, and was gentle enough for a child's skin. The limit was just as plain. A paste helps an ordinary sting, but it does nothing for a person who swells up all over or struggles to breathe. And those folks needed a doctor quick, then and now. For a normal sting on a normal day, though, that little dab of white paste was exactly enough. It turned a screaming afternoon back into a playing one. Did your mother keep you still long enough for it to dry? Or did you wipe it off the second she turned around? Number 96. Boiling the scale out of the kettle with vinegar. If you lived where the water ran hard, you knew this one by heart. Over the months, the inside of the tea kettle crusted over with a chalky white buildup that flaked into your cup and made the whole thing take longer to boil. That crust is limescale, mostly calcium carbonate left behind by the water, and it is a mineral, alkaline and stubborn. Vinegar, being an acid, dissolves it. So a few times a year you poured a good splash of white vinegar into the kettle, topped it with water, and set it to boil. The scale fizzed and loosened and washed away, and after a rinse, the kettle looked new inside and heated fast again. Homemakers used the very same method on the coffee percolator, and later the drip machine, running vinegar water through to clear the works. The upside was obvious. It saved an appliance that hard water would otherwise ruin, and it cost less than a dime. The one thing you had to mind was the smell and the rinse. Skip the second run of plain water, and your morning tea tasted faintly of pickle, which nobody forgot twice. Today they sell little descaling packets for a few dollars a pop that are mostly the same acid in a costlier coat. The jug under the sink did it all along. Does your water still leave that white ring? And do you reach for the vinegar the way your people did? Number 95. Scrubbing the pots and the porcelain sink with baking soda. Long before the sink was crowded with a different spray for every surface, one yellow box did most of the heavy scrubbing. When a pot came off the stove with food scorched onto the bottom, you shook baking soda across it, added a little hot water, and let it sit while you ate. By the time the dishes were done, the burnt crust had loosened enough to wipe away. Baking soda works here as a soft abrasive. The little crystals are just hard enough to scour off stuck grime, but soft enough that they do not scratch the pot or the porcelain the way a harsh cleanser would. That gentleness is why grandmothers trusted it on the good enamel sink and the white bathtub, scrubbing away the gray ring without carving fine scratches that would only hold dirt worse later. It cost a fraction of the branded scouring powders, and it left no chemical stink behind, just a clean, faintly salty smell. The trade-off was elbow grease. It asked more scrubbing than the caustic stuff that ate through grime on its own, so a truly baked-on mess meant a longer soak and a stronger arm. Most people counted that a fair price for something safe enough to keep an open box within a child's reach. Today, a canister of the same soda still costs about $1. When you scrubbed the sink growing up, was it baking soda in your house, or one of those green cans of cleanser? Number 94. Rubbing Vicks into a sore, aching back. By the time a working man came in from a long day, his back and shoulders were often knotted tight, and the blue jar came down off the shelf. Somebody warmed a fingerful of Vicks between their hands and rubbed it deep into the sore muscles until the skin tingled and went warm. That warmth was the point. Vicks Vapo Rub carries camphor and menthol, and both are what pharmacists call counterirritants. They stir up a mild cooling and warming feeling on the skin. That distracts the nerves from the deeper ache underneath. It does not heal the strain, but for a tired body, it took the edge off enough to sleep. Lunsford Richardson mixed the first batch in North Carolina back in 1894, and though he sold it for coughs, families quickly learned it did just as much for a stiff neck, a wrenched shoulder, or knees that ached before rain. The good was the cheap, quick comfort, and the smell that meant rest was coming. The honest limit is that it masked pain rather than fixing the cause, so a real injury still needed real care. And the strong camphor was never meant to go on broken skin or anywhere near the eyes. For everyday aches, though, That rub was a small mercy at the end of a hard day. Did somebody in your house rub it on your back for you, or did you learn to reach around and do it yourself? Number 93. Brightening the whites in the wash with hydrogen peroxide. Number 93 kept the church shirts and the good sheets looking sharp without the harsh sting of chlorine bleach. A cup of ordinary 3% hydrogen peroxide poured into the wash with the whites lifted the dinginess and brought back a clean brightness. It works because peroxide is a gentle oxidizer. It breaks down the stains and the grayed-up buildup on the fibers, then falls apart harmlessly into water and oxygen, leaving nothing behind to yellow the cloth over time, the way some bleaches eventually do. Careful homemakers liked it because it was kinder to the fabric and kinder to the hands, and it would not eat a hole in a blouse if a drop landed wrong the way chlorine could. It was a quiet trick, passed between neighbors at the clothesline more than printed in any book. The benefits were real: a whiter wash and softer wear on the cloth, and the cost was maybe $1/4 a load. The one caution was color. Peroxide is still a mild bleach, so you kept it well away from your good darks, and anything dyed bright, or you traded a stain for a faded patch. Used on whites, though, it was close to foolproof. Today, an oxygen laundry booster in a bright tub sells for many dollars, and its main working part is the same oxygen chemistry your grandmother poured straight from the brown bottle. Did you know that trick? Or was chlorine bleach the only whitener in your laundry room? Number 92. Softening the laundry with a cup of vinegar in the rinse. Here is one that surprises people who never learned it. To get towels and clothes soft without a store-bought softener, you poured about half a cup of white vinegar into the rinse water. It sounds like it should leave everything smelling like a salad, but it does not. The vinegar rinses away the leftover soap and the hard water minerals that stiffen fabric and make towels scratchy, and then it rinses out completely, taking its own smell with it. What you are left with is cloth that is soft, fluffy, and free of the waxy residue that commercial softeners actually leave behind. Thrifty households leaned on this all through the lean years, and well past them, because a jug of vinegar cost a fraction of a bottle of softener and did double duty as a cleaner besides. It even helped keep the washer itself free of soap scum. The good was softness, savings, and no perfume for sensitive skin. The drawbacks were few. You had to add it at the right moment in the rinse, and you never mixed it in the same cup as bleach, because vinegar and chlorine bleach together give off a dangerous gas, and that was a rule you followed without exception. On its own in the rinse, it was pure benefit. Store softeners now run several dollars a bottle and coat your towels in a film that slowly makes them less absorbent. Did anybody teach you the vinegar rinse? Or is this the first you are hearing that it works? Number 91. Shining the good silver with baking soda and a piece of foil. When the holidays came and the good silverware had to come out, it usually came out black. Silver tarnishes, that dull dark film creeping over every fork and spoon, and polishing it by hand was slow, smelly work with a special paste. There was a faster way, and the families who knew it felt like they had a secret. You lined a pan with aluminum foil, laid the silver on top so it touched the foil, poured in baking soda and hot water, and watched the tarnish lift away almost on its own. This is real chemistry, not a trick of scrubbing. The tarnish is silver sulfide, and in that hot bath the sulfur leaves the silver and moves onto the aluminum foil instead. So your spoons come out bright while the foil goes dark and dull. A few minutes, a rinse, a soft dry cloth, and the whole set gleamed for the table. It cost almost nothing and spared your hands the harsh polish and the endless rubbing. The limits were sensible ones. It was best for solid silver and plain pieces, and you went gentle with fine antiques and anything with a deliberate dark design set into the pattern, since it would strip that away too. For a drawer full of everyday good silver, though, it was close to magic. Did your family bring out the real silver for Sunday and the holidays, and who got stuck polishing it? Number 90. Running vinegar through the coffee maker. Coffee was close to sacred in most houses, and a machine that got neglected started making a bitter, weak, off-tasting brew that no amount of extra scoops could fix. The trouble was buildup, the same chalky limescale that crusts a kettle, plus the old coffee oils that turned rancid down in the lines where you never saw them. Once a month, the cure was simple. You filled the reservoir with equal parts white vinegar and water, ran a full cycle with no grounds in the basket, then ran 2 or 3 more cycles of plain water to rinse it clean. The vinegar acid dissolved the mineral scale that was choking the works, and it cut clean through the stale oil coating the carafe. And the next morning the coffee came out hot and bright the way it used to. This carried straight over from the old stovetop percolator, which people had cleaned exactly this way for generations before the plug-in kind ever showed up on the counter. What it gave you was a machine that ran for years instead of dying young, and coffee worth getting up for, all for a few cents. The one thing you could never skip was that final rinse. Miss it and the first cup tasted like Easter eggs, a mistake nobody in the family made twice. The store now sells little single-use descaling pouches at a steep markup that are mostly the same acid dressed up in a packet. Was your family a percolator house or a drip house growing up? And who was trusted to get the pot going before anybody else was awake? Number 89. Whitening the grout with hydrogen peroxide and baking soda. The bathroom tile always told the truth about a house. The tiles themselves might stay white, but the grout lines between them went gray, then brown, holding onto soap scum and mildew no matter how hard you mopped the floor. The old cure was a paste you mixed yourself. You stirred baking soda together with enough hydrogen peroxide to make a thick, spreadable spread. Worked it down into the grout lines with a worn-out toothbrush. Let it sit a while, then scrubbed and rinsed it away. The 2 ingredients worked as a team, each doing a different job. The baking soda gave the gentle grit that scoured the ground-in dirt out of the porous grout, while the peroxide oxidized and bleached the stains and killed the mildew that had settled deep into the lines. When you finally rinsed, the grout came back looking years younger, close to the day it was laid. Careful housekeepers reached for this instead of straight chlorine because it whitened without the choking fumes and without the danger of splashing bleach onto a colored bath mat or a good towel. The reward was tile that looked freshly set for the price of 2 cabinet staples you already owned. The catch was plain old labor, since grout is stubborn, and this meant getting down on your knees with a brush and putting your back into it. And you kept the peroxide well off any surface you did not want lightened. Do you remember scrubbing the bathroom tile on your hands and knees before company came, and how the whole room smelled honest and clean when you were finally done? Number 88. Freshening the whole carpet with a box of baking soda. Before anybody plugged scent into the wall, a whole house could be freshened with the yellow box and a vacuum cleaner. When the living room carpet started holding onto the smell of the dog, the frying, and 100 muddy shoes, you sprinkled baking soda over it in a light, even snow. Let it sit 15 or 20 minutes, and then vacuumed every bit of it back up. The odors did not get covered over, they got carried off. The soda settled down into the fibers and neutralized the trapped smells right where they lived. And the vacuum pulled the powder and the odor out together in one pass. Homemakers did this before Sunday guests arrived, and after a long sick week when the whole house needed to feel new again, and every autumn when the windows had been shut too long. The benefit was a genuinely fresher room for a few pennies, with no heavy perfume left hanging in the air to bother somebody with tender lungs or a baby in the crib. There were 2 small things to mind. You wanted a good even sprinkle and enough sit time to let it do its work, and a deep, plush, or slightly damp carpet could cling to the fine powder, so a slow and thorough vacuuming mattered. Past that, it was about as safe as cleaning ever gets. The carpet powders lined up on the store shelf today are mostly this same baking soda, with fragrance stirred in and a much bigger number on the can. When company was coming and the house had to be ready in an hour, was this part of the mad dash in your home? Number 87. Soaking the shower head in a bag of vinegar. If your shower had quit throwing a strong spray and turned into a crooked, spitting trickle, the shower head was clogged, and you did not need to call a plumber to fix it. Hard water minerals had crusted over the little holes and choked off the flow, one deposit at a time. The old fix looked almost silly hanging there, but it worked every time. You filled a small plastic bag with white vinegar, pulled it up over the shower head so the whole head sat submerged in it, and tied it in place with a rubber band to soak overnight. By morning, the acid had eaten through the scale, and after a quick scrub with an old brush and a run of hot water, the spray came roaring back full and even across every hole. People did this whenever the shower started to weaken, and it saved the cost and the bother of replacing a fixture that had nothing wrong with it but a crust of minerals. What made it worth doing was the size of the payoff against the size of the effort. Just a cup of vinegar and a bag you already had in the drawer. The drawback was patience, since it needed hours to work, and a very old head with a delicate plated finish could dull a little from a long soak. So you kept a closer eye on the fancy ones and pulled them early. For a plain, everyday shower head, though, it was a quiet piece of magic working while you slept. Have you ever walked into a bathroom and found a bag tied over the shower and known right away what somebody was up to? Number 86. Rubbing Vicks on cracked heels before bed. Come the dry months, the backs of your heels could crack and split until every step across the kitchen floor stung, and the blue jar had an answer for that too. At bedtime, you rubbed a thick coat of Vicks into the rough, cracked skin, pulled a pair of cotton socks on over it, and went to sleep. By morning, the heels had softened, and the sharp edges of the cracks had settled down. The petroleum jelly base is the real worker in that jar. It seals moisture in and holds it against the dry, hardened skin all night long so the splits can begin to heal, while the menthol adds a mild cooling that takes the soreness down a notch. Folks who spend all day on their feet learned to keep this up through the cold months, so their heels never got bad enough to bleed and catch on the bedsheets. Farmers did it, nurses did it, waitresses did it. Anybody whose living came standing up. The good was soft, comfortable feet by morning using something already sitting in the cabinet. No special foot cream needed off the store shelf. The honest note is that the real healing came from that greasy base and the socks holding it in, not from anything mysterious in the medicine. And the strong menthol was more than the job actually called for. Plain petroleum jelly under a sock would have done nearly the same. Still, Vicks was what the house had, and it worked, and the sharp smell of it became part of turning in for the night. Did somebody in your family sleep in socks all winter for this very reason? Number 85. Smothering a grease fire with baking soda. This one was never a convenience. It was the kind of hard knowledge that saved a whole kitchen, and sometimes a whole house. A pan of grease could catch fire on the stove in a single heartbeat, a flame leaping up out of nowhere. And the very worst thing a frightened person could do was throw water on it, which sends the burning grease exploding outward in every direction. What the old cooks knew and drilled into their children was to grab the baking soda and dump it straight over the flames instead. When baking soda heats up, it releases carbon dioxide, a gas that smothers the fire by cutting it off from the air it needs to burn. And the powder itself helps blanket the flames and starve them out. A cook who kept an open box within arm's reach of the stove could kill a small grease fire before it ever climbed out of the pan. That knowledge got handed down as plain safety, mother to daughter and father to son, because a kitchen fire was a real and constant danger in a home that fried and rendered and cooked from scratch 3 times a day. The benefit is obvious and serious. The limit matters just as much to say out loud. Baking soda handles a small, contained flare-up, but anything bigger than a pan calls for a tight lid to smother it, or a real fire extinguisher. And getting yourself and your family out the door safely comes before saving any pot. For the little flare in the skillet, though, that box was a silent guardian on the counter. Were you ever taught, plain and firm, never to throw water on a grease fire? Number 84. Steaming the microwave clean with vinegar water. Once the microwave landed on the counter, it got filthy faster than anything else in the kitchen, splattered with sauce and soup and baked on food that dried to concrete and laughed at a wet rag. Scrubbing the inside of it was a miserable job until people worked out the steam trick, and then it became the easiest cleaning of the week. You set a bowl of water with a good splash of vinegar inside, ran it on high for a few minutes until it boiled hard and fogged up the whole inside of the oven, and let the steam do the work. That steam, carrying the vinegar up with it, softened and loosened every dried-on splatter on the walls and the ceiling of the box, and the acid cut through the grease at the same time. Then you simply wiped it all away with a cloth. No scrubbing and no sore wrist, and the vinegar left the whole thing deodorized on top of clean. This was a newer hack than most on the list, born the same year the appliance was, but it came straight out of the same old thinking your grandmother lived by. Let the vinegar and a little steam do the hard part, so you do not have to. The good was a spotless microwave in about 5 easy minutes, using something already under the sink. The one real caution was the bowl itself, which came out hot enough to scald a careless hand. So you let it stand a moment before reaching in after it. The vinegar smell aired right out the second the door swung open. Do you still zap a bowl of vinegar water to loosen the mess in there? Or did somebody teach you a different steam trick over the years? Number 83. Sanitizing the kitchen sponge with hydrogen peroxide. The dish sponge was the dirtiest thing in most kitchens, and everybody knew it by the sour smell it took on after a few days of hard use. Rather than pitch it and open a new one, thrifty households disinfected the one they had. You soaked the sponge in a bowl of hydrogen peroxide, or simply poured the peroxide right over it and let it fizz and bubble through the whole thing from one side to the other. The same oxygen chemistry that made it foam on your skinned knee did the real work here, breaking apart the bacteria and the funk living deep down in the sponge, and then falling apart into plain water and oxygen with no chemical smell left behind. A rinsed and wrung out sponge could go several more rounds at the sink before it truly gave out. This mattered in homes where nothing got thrown away, while it still had honest use left in it. And a sponge was not something you replaced on a whim or a whim schedule. The benefit was a fresher, cleaner sponge and less waste, all for a few cents of peroxide. The limit is worth being straight about. A sponge that has gone truly rank and slimy is better retired than revived, since no soak brings back what is that far gone, and you kept the peroxide off any colored dishcloth you happen to soak beside it, since it will lift the dye. For a sponge with life still in it, though, it worked fine. Did your family stretch a sponge until it was falling to pieces? Or was that one step too far even for the thriftiest cook you knew? Number 82. Killing the odor in the sneakers with baking soda. Kids ran hard and their shoes paid the price. And by the middle of summer, a pair of sneakers left by the back door could clear a whole room on its own. The cure sat in the same yellow box that fixed half the house. You shook a spoonful of baking soda down into each shoe at night, tapped them to spread it around the toe and the heel, and left them to sit until morning, then knocked the powder back out before anybody wore them. Foot odor is mostly acidic, the work of bacteria feeding on trapped sweat, and the baking soda neutralized those acids, while it drank up the leftover moisture the bacteria needed to keep thriving. The shoes came out smelling like nothing at all, which was exactly the goal. Mothers ran this on the whole family's shoes, and the gym bags, and the funk at the bottom of the hamper too, working their way around the house one smell at a time. The upside was cheap, quick, and safe enough that nobody fretted over the powder around children. The small drawbacks were remembering to knock the soda back out before you laced up, since a walk on a fresh coat left white footprints across the floor, and understanding that it treated the smell rather than the sweaty feet making the smell in the first place. For an everyday case of stinky sneakers, though, it did the trick without fail. Was there a designated spot by the door where the worst offending shoes got sentenced to a night of baking soda in your house? Number 81. Killing the weeds in the sidewalk cracks with vinegar. Out along the front walk, weeds and crabgrass pushed up through every crack in the concrete, and pulling them by hand was a losing fight that started over again every single week before folks reached for the harsh weed killers off the hardware shelf. Plenty of them just used the vinegar jug. On a hot, dry, sunny afternoon, you poured or sprayed straight white vinegar right onto the weeds in the cracks, soaking the leaves good and wet. The acetic acid pulled the moisture out of the leaves and burned them back, and within a day or two in the sun, the green had browned and shriveled and pulled loose easy. This was a common sight around driveways, patios, and garden paths, anywhere you wanted the weeds gone, but did not want to spray poison near where the children played barefoot and the tomatoes grew. The good was a cheap, simple weed knockdown using something straight out of the pantry. The honest limits are real and worth knowing. Vinegar burns the top growth, but often does not reach the deep root, so the tough perennial weeds come back and need another dose or two. And it does not know a friend from a foe, so you kept it well off the flowers and the patch of lawn you wanted to keep alive. For the cracks in the front walk on a sunny day, though, it did honest work with no worry. Did somebody in your family fight the sidewalk weeds this way, jug in hand under the hot sun? Number 80. Boosting the laundry with a scoop of baking soda. Wash day had its own quiet science, and one of the best kept parts of it was the scoop of baking soda that went in with the regular soap. It did two things at once. It softened the wash water, and in soft water your detergent works far better. So the same box of soap cleaned more clothes and cleaned them deeper. And it went to work on odors right there in the drum, neutralizing the sweat and the sour smell that plain detergent sometimes left behind in a load of work clothes or gym socks. Homemakers who watched every penny loved it because it stretched their soap and cut the grime at the same time, turning a half scoop of detergent into a full clean. Grandmothers who scrubbed by hand and on the wringer washer had done the same thing long before automatic machines arrived. What made it worth the habit was the savings and the fresher wash for pennies a load. With nothing harsh on the skin, there was almost no downside to speak of, just the discipline of remembering to add it, and the good sense not to dump it in the same cup as bleach, since vinegar and bleach, and even the wrong mixes could turn dangerous. On its own with your regular soap, it was pure gain. The laundry boosters sold in the bright tubs today lean on the very same chemistry at several times the price. Did your family add anything extra to the wash? A scoop of soda or a splash of something to make the soap go further. Number 79. Lifting a blood stain with hydrogen peroxide. A skinned knee or a nosebleed meant more than a hurt child. It meant blood on a good shirt or a favorite sheet. And blood is one of the hardest stains there is once it sets. The families who knew the trick did not panic. They reached for the brown bottle. You poured hydrogen peroxide straight onto the fresh blood stain and watched it foam up white, then blotted it and repeated until the stain lifted clean away. The same fizzing reaction that startled you as a child is what does the work. The peroxide breaks down the blood and oxidizes the pigment right out of the fibers, lifting it instead of driving it deeper the way hot water would. Best of all, it left no color behind, so it was safe on the whites and the light-colored linens, where blood shows worst. Mothers of active children and nurses who worked with the hurt swore by this because a stain caught early nearly always came out. The reward was a saved shirt for a few cents. The honest cautions were simple. You worked fast, since a set-in old stain fights harder than a fresh one, and you tested a hidden corner first on anything dyed or delicate, since peroxide is still a mild bleach and could lighten a bright color on fresh blood on white cloth, though it was close to a sure thing. Did your mother keep the peroxide handy for exactly this reason? The bloody nose that always seemed to hit the good pillowcase. Number 78. Washing the fruits and vegetables in vinegar water. Before the produce came home wrapped and rinsed and triple washed, it came home dusty, and the careful cook gave it a bath before it ever hit the table. A basin of cool water with a good splash of white vinegar became the wash for the garden greens, the store apples, the grapes, and the berries. You swished the produce through it, let it sit a minute, then rinsed it under clean water. The vinegar cut through the field grime, the wax, and some of the residue on the skins, and it helped knock back the surface bacteria, and even chased off the little bugs that hid in a head of leaf lettuce. What people liked was the plain, honest cleanliness of it, food you felt good about setting in front of your family, for the cost of a little vinegar. This was especially dear to households that ate straight out of the garden, where the greens came in with real dirt still on them. The benefits were a cleaner rinse than water alone, and produce that often kept a touch longer once the surface mold spores were knocked down. The one thing you did not skip was the plain water rinse at the end, or the fruit carried a faint sour tang to the table. Delicate berries also went quick and gentle, since a long soak left them soggy. Did somebody in your house fill the sink and wash the produce this way? Or did the garden greens go straight from the ground to the pot? Number 77. Rubbing Vicks on to keep the mosquitoes off. Summer evenings on the porch came with a price, and the mosquitoes always seemed to find the tender spots first. Long before the shelves filled up with sprays, plenty of folks reached for the blue jar and dabbed a little Vicks on their wrists, their ankles, and the back of the neck. The bugs mostly kept their distance. The camphor and the cedar and eucalyptus oils in the ointment give off a strong smell that a mosquito finds unpleasant, so it drifts off to bother somebody else instead. It was never a perfect shield, but on a still evening it cut the biting down enough to let you sit out and watch the fireflies without slapping at your arms the whole time. Country families and town families Alike passed this one around, since a jar of Vicks was already in the house and cost nothing extra to press into service as bug repellent. The good was a handy deterrent with no special trip to the store. The honest limits are worth saying. It wears off as the smell fades, so it needed freshening, and it does not work as strong or as long as a proper repellent on a bad night in mosquito country. You also kept it off broken skin and away from little ones' faces. For an ordinary evening on the steps, though, it did a fair job of keeping the pests moving along. Did your family dab Vicks on before sitting out in the evenings, or was it citronella candles and a good hand for slapping at your house? Number 76. Cleaning the oven with a baking soda paste overnight. The oven was the dread job of the whole kitchen. The black baked-on grease and the spills from a dozen Sunday roasts crusted onto the floor and the walls of the thing. The harsh oven sprays that came along later filled the house with fumes that stung your eyes and throat. The old way was gentler and just as effective, if you gave it time. You mixed baking soda with a little water into a thick paste, spread it all over the greasy inside of the oven in an even coat, and left it to sit overnight while everyone slept. By morning, the paste had loosened and softened the baked-on grime, and it wiped away with a damp cloth, taking the grease with it, and a quick pass of vinegar afterward cut any last film and rinsed the soda residue clean. The whole thing worked because the mild alkaline soda breaks down grease over time, and the soft grit scours off what is left without scratching the enamel. What made it worth the wait was a clean oven with no choking fumes, safe enough to do with the windows shut in winter and the grandkids in the next room. The catch was purely the time and the elbow grease, since it asked for an overnight soak and a good wipe down rather than a quick spray and wipe. For a job you only truly tackled a few times a year, that was a fair trade. Was cleaning the oven a dreaded chore in your house? And did somebody swear by the baking soda soak or reach for the can of fumes? Number 75. Descaling the steam iron with vinegar. Ironing was serious business when a pressed shirt said something about you, and a steam iron that got clogged could ruin a whole load of good clothes. Over time, the mineral scale from the water built up inside the iron and blocked the steam holes. And worse, it could spit brown, rusty water right onto a white blouse at the worst moment. The fix was the vinegar jug again. You filled the iron's reservoir with equal parts white vinegar and water, set it on steam, and let it run and steam itself clean over a rag or an old towel, pushing the vinegar through the clogged holes. The acid dissolved the scale, blocking the vents, and after a good rinse of plain water through the tank, the iron steamed clean and clear again and glided smooth. Homemakers who took pride in their pressing kept up with this, so the iron never had a chance to spot their good work. The reward was a reliable iron and no ruined shirts for a few cents of vinegar. The one thing you had to be careful with was that final plain water flush, since any vinegar left in the tank could tint the steam and carry the smell onto the clothes. You also checked the maker's word on the fancier irons, since a few did not care for vinegar inside. For a standard iron, though, it kept it running for years. Was ironing a Sunday night ritual in your house, getting everyone ready for the week? And who was the one who did it? Number 74. Whitening the toilet bowl with hydrogen peroxide. Not every job in the house was pretty, and the toilet bowl was one of the least. Over time, it picked up stains and a dingy ring, especially where the water was hard, and the harsh bowl cleaners were rough stuff to keep around a house with children. The gentler old answer was hydrogen peroxide. You poured a good cup of it into the bowl, let it sit for a half hour or so to do its work, then took the brush to it and flushed it clean. The peroxide oxidized and bleached out the stains and the discoloration, and it killed the germs while it was at it, then broke down into nothing but water and oxygen, so there was no harsh chemical sitting in the bowl or going down into the pipes. Careful housekeepers liked that it did the whitening without the sharp fumes and without the danger of a splash of caustic cleaner. The good was a clean, bright bowl with something already in the medicine cabinet, cheaper than the specialty cleaners by a wide margin. The main limit was that a heavy, long-set stain or a thick hard water crust sometimes needed a helping hand, a sprinkle of baking soda scrubbed in alongside it to come fully clean, and the plain rule held that you never mixed it or any cleaner with bleach. For everyday brightening, though, The brown bottle earned its keep even here. Did your family keep the peroxide doing double duty all over the house? Or was it strictly for the medicine cabinet in your home? Number 73. Brushing your teeth with baking soda. Long before the toothpaste aisle stretched half the length of the store, a great many people cleaned their teeth with plain baking soda, and plenty kept doing it their whole lives. You wet the brush, dipped it in the box or a little dish of soda and brushed. The taste was sharp and salty and took some getting used to, but the teeth came out clean and smooth. It works because baking soda is a mild abrasive that gently polishes away the surface stains from coffee and tobacco, and because it neutralizes the acids in the mouth that feed decay and cause bad breath, leaving the mouth feeling fresh and clean. Grandparents who grew up with little money swore their teeth were the better for it, and dentists have long agreed it is a decent, gentle cleaner. The good was clean teeth and fresh breath for almost nothing, a box that lasted months. The honest cautions belong here too. It has no fluoride, which we now know helps guard against cavities. So it was a cleaner more than a full modern toothpaste, and you went easy rather than scrubbing hard, since even a mild abrasive used roughly can wear at the enamel over years. Used with a gentle hand, though, it did honest work, and many an older person still keeps a box by the sink for exactly this. Did somebody in your family brush with baking soda, or mix it with a little salt, and swear by it right to the end? Number 72. Peeling off sticky labels with vinegar. You bought a nice new jar, or a picture frame, or a drinking glass, and it came with a price sticker that fought you to the death, leaving behind that gummy gray residue that just rolled up under your thumb and never fully came off. The vinegar jug solved it without a scratch. You soaked a cloth or a paper towel in white vinegar, laid it right over the stubborn label or the leftover glue, and let it sit for a few minutes. The acid soaked into the paper and broke down the sticky adhesive underneath, and then the whole mess wiped or peeled away clean, leaving the glass or the wood or the metal smooth and unmarked. This was a small everyday trick, the kind that got passed along more than written down, but anyone who learned it never fought a sticker barehanded again. What made it worth knowing was how it lifted the glue without gouging at the surface with a knife or a scraper, saving the finish on the nice things. The one limit was that a really tough, thick label wanted a longer soak, and a very porous surface could drink up the vinegar, so you gave those extra time. For the everyday price tag and the gummy glue behind it, though, it worked like a charm. Did you ever watch somebody in your family patiently work a stubborn sticker off with a vinegar rag, rather than pick at it and make a mess? Number 71. Deodorizing the trash can with baking soda. The kitchen trash can was a quiet source of misery, especially in the summer heat, when the smell seemed to soak right into the plastic and greet you every time you lifted the lid. Baking soda took care of it two ways. You could shake a layer of it right into the bottom of the can under the bag, where it caught and neutralized the odors and the drips that leaked through, and you could scrub the can itself out with a baking soda paste when it needed a real cleaning, then let it dry. Either way, the soda met the sour, acidic smells of the garbage and neutralized them at the source, instead of just fighting them with a stronger perfume. Homemakers did the same in the diaper pail, the bottom of the hamper, and the cat's box, wherever a bad smell had settled in to stay. The good was a can that did not announce itself across the kitchen. For a few pennies and a minute of work, the only thing to mind was keeping it up, since a spent layer of soda eventually gave out and needed refreshing, and a truly filthy can wanted the paste scrub rather than just a sprinkle. Past that, it was simple and safe and cheap. Have you ever caught yourself shaking a little baking soda into the bottom of the trash can, the way you saw it done growing up, without even thinking about why? Number 70. Taking the yellow sweat stains out of a white shirt with hydrogen peroxide. Nothing aged a good white shirt faster than the yellow crescents that built up under the arms and along the collar. That yellowing comes from sweat mixing with the aluminum in antiperspirant and baking into the fibers over time. And once it sets, regular washing will not touch it. The old remedy was hydrogen peroxide, sometimes worked into a paste with a little baking soda for the worst of it. You laid the shirt out, poured or spread the peroxide right onto the stained area, let it sit for a while, then scrubbed it gently and washed as usual. The peroxide oxidized the yellow discoloration and broke it up out of the cloth, and since it was safe on whites, it lifted the stain without leaving a bleached-out patch behind. Working folks who sweated through their good shirts leaned on this to keep their Sunday best, and their work whites looking sharp for years longer. The reward was a rescued shirt for the price of a splash from the brown bottle. The honest limits were about timing and color. A fresh yellowing lifts far easier than one that has been baked in through 100 hot washes, and you kept the peroxide to whites and tested it on anything dyed. On a white collar and cuff, though, it was the trick that saved the garment. Did somebody in your house fight the underarm yellow this way? Or was a shirt just retired to yard work once it turned? Number 69. Shining up the chrome and the faucets with vinegar. The kitchen and bathroom fixtures took the worst of the hard water, going dull and spotty, encrusted with a chalky film around the base of every faucet. Store polishes promised a shine, but the jug of white vinegar delivered one for a fraction of the price. You dampened a cloth with vinegar, or laid a vinegar-soaked rag right over a badly crusted spout and wiped the chrome down. The acid cut straight through the mineral film, and the water spots and the soap scum. And after a buff with a dry cloth, the chrome came up bright enough to see your face in. The old faucets, the towel bars, the drain covers, all of it came back to a real shine. Housekeepers who wanted a bathroom that sparkled without a shelf full of specialty sprays kept the vinegar close for exactly this. What made it worth it was a genuine shine at almost no cost, and no harsh chemical film left behind on surfaces the family touched every day. The one caution was to steer clear of certain finishes, since vinegar's acid does not agree with natural stone or a few delicate platings, so you kept it to the chrome and the stainless and the glass. On those, it was hard to beat. Did your family have somebody who kept the fixtures gleaming? And was the secret a bottle of store polish or the same vinegar that cleaned everything else? Number 68. Making a simple deodorant out of baking soda. Here is one that speaks to just how many jobs that one box could do. On a hot day, or when the store-bought deodorant ran out and money was short, people patted a little baking soda right under their arms. It was not fancy, but it worked. And plenty of folks who had sensitive skin actually preferred it. Body odor is made by bacteria breaking down sweat, and that process runs acidic. So the baking soda neutralized the acids and cut the smell at its source, rather than just covering it with a perfume. It also drank up a little of the dampness. This went back to a time when a store deodorant was a small luxury, and a spoonful from the kitchen box did the same job for next to nothing. The good was cheap, gentle, and free of the heavy fragrance, and the aluminum some folks would rather do without. The honest catch is that soda used straight and heavy could irritate tender skin for some people over time, so a light touch mattered, and it neutralized odor without stopping the sweat the way an antiperspirant does. For a great many people, though, a light dusting was all they ever needed, and some never went back to the store kind, even when money was no longer tight. The natural deodorants that sell for a good price now put baking soda right at the top of the label, which would have made those thrifty grandmothers laugh. Did you ever know somebody, maybe an older relative, who kept a little dish of baking soda by the sink and used it exactly this way, plain and without a bit of shame about it? Number 67. Clearing a slow drain with baking soda and vinegar. A kitchen or bathroom drain that had slowed to a gurgle used to send people running for a bottle of harsh, dangerous lye cleaner. The gentler old way used two things from the cabinet. You poured a good measure of baking soda down the drain, followed it with a cup of vinegar, and stood back while it foamed and fizzed up in the pipe. Then chased the whole thing down with a kettle of very hot water. The baking soda and the vinegar scrubbed and loosened the greasy, gunky buildup coating the inside of the pipe, and the flush of hot water carried it away. Households leaned on this to keep the drains running free, without pouring caustic poison down the sink where children and pets were about. What made it appealing was the safety and the low cost, a maintenance trick you could do anytime with what was on hand. Now, the honest truth that the plumbers and the chemists will tell you, that dramatic fizz is mostly for show, since the two mostly just cancel each other out, and the real cleaning comes from the hot water flush, and from doing it regularly before a clog gets bad. It keeps a working drain running, but it will not punch through a solid, greasy blockage the way you might hope. And that job needs a plunger, a snake, or a plumber. For regular upkeep, though, it beat pouring poison. Did your family keep the drains clear with the fizzing baking soda and vinegar? And did you love watching it bubble up as a kid? Number 66. Rubbing Vicks on your temples for a headache. When a tension headache set in and settled behind the eyes and across the brow, a lot of people reached for the blue jar and rubbed the smallest dab into their temples and across the forehead, careful to stay well away from the eyes. Within a minute, the cooling set in, and for many it took the edge off the ache. The menthol is what does it. It sets off the cold-sensing nerves in the skin, and that spreading, tingling coolness gives the mind something else to notice and eases the tight, gripping feeling of the headache. It was never a cure, but it was a comfort, and comfort counted on a bad afternoon. This was one of those uses the label never listed, but everybody's family seemed to know, passed along quietly as something that helped. The good was fast, free relief from something already in the cabinet. No pill to swallow. The honest limits sit right up front. It soothed the sensation more than it fixed the cause. So a real pounding headache still called for rest, water, or a doctor if it kept up. And you kept the strong ointment a careful distance from the eyes, where the menthol vapors sting. For an everyday tension headache, though, that cool touch at the temples brought real relief. Did somebody rub Vicks on your temples when your head hurt? Or was that a trick you found on your own? Number 65. Whitening the canvas sneakers with hydrogen peroxide. White canvas sneakers looked sharp for about a week, and then turned a sad, scuffed gray that no ordinary wash brought back. Families who wanted to stretch a pair of shoes, and everybody did, learned to brighten the canvas with hydrogen peroxide, often mixed with a little baking soda into a paste. You worked the paste into the dingy canvas with an old brush, let the shoes sit out in the sun to dry, then brushed off the residue. The sun and the peroxide together bleached the gray right out, since the peroxide oxidized the grime, and the sunlight boosted the whitening, and the baking soda scrubbed the ground-in dirt loose. The shoes came back close to new, ready for another season of school or play. This mattered in homes where a new pair of sneakers was a real expense, and the old ones got every last mile squeezed out of them. The reward was fresh-looking shoes for pennies instead of a trip to the store. The catch was patience and sunshine, since the trick worked best drying out in the sun and did not do much on a cloudy day, and you kept it to white and light canvas, since peroxide would fade a colored shoe. For a scuffed pair of white sneakers, though, it bought them a whole new life. Did somebody in your family whiten up the school shoes this way to get another year out of them? Number 64. Scrubbing the coffee and tea stains out of the mugs with baking soda. Anybody who drank their coffee or tea by the potful knew the brown ring that built up inside a favorite mug and would not wash off, no matter how hard you scrubbed with soap. Baking soda took it right out. You sprinkled a little into the damp mug, added a few drops of water to make a loose paste, and rubbed it around the inside with a cloth or a finger, and the stubborn stain wiped away, leaving the china white again. The tannins in coffee and tea stain the glaze over time, and the gentle grit of the baking soda scours that thin film off, without scratching the surface the way a harsh scrubber would. Grandmothers who took their tea seriously kept the good cups spotless this way, and it worked just as well on a stained thermos or a coffee pot gone brown inside. What made it worth the minute was clean, bright cups without buying a special cleaner, and a gentleness that spared the delicate china. For a really stubborn ring, you could leave a paste of soda and water sitting in the mug for a while before you rubbed, and it lifted grime that had been there so long you had stopped noticing it. There was hardly a downside, only the small effort of the scrub itself, and the sense to go easy on a hand-painted or gold-rimmed piece. For the everyday coffee mug with a year of stains in it, though, the box handled it, and handled it cheaper than any specialty cleaner on the shelf. Did somebody in your family keep the good cups spotless, and did the tea stains ever stand a chance against them? Number 63. Getting the water spots off the glassware with vinegar. You pulled a clean glass out of the cupboard, held it to the light, and there they were, the cloudy film and the chalky spots that made it look dirty even fresh from the wash. That haze is hard water minerals dried onto the glass, and soap will not shift it. Vinegar will. You wiped the glass with a vinegar-dampened cloth, or soaked the worst of them in a basin of vinegar water for a few minutes, then rinsed and dried. The acid dissolved the mineral film right off, and the glassware came out clear and sparkling, the way it looked when it was new. This was the trick that got the good glasses ready before company came, and it kept the everyday tumblers from going permanently foggy. Homemakers who wanted a table that looked cared for kept up with it, especially in hard water country where the film built fast. The good was crystal clear glass with no film and no cost to speak of. The main limit was that a heavy, long-set cloudiness sometimes needed a real soak rather than a quick wipe, and truly etched glass, where the hard water had actually pitted the surface, was past saving by any method. A little vinegar in the dishwater or in the rinse also kept the whole set from clouding in the first place, so you were not always fighting a battle already lost. For ordinary spotting and film, though, vinegar cleared it every time, and it did the job for a few cents where a bottle of rinse aid ran several dollars. Did somebody in your family give the good glasses a vinegar wipe before setting the holiday table, so they caught the light just right? Number 62. Freshening the mattress with baking soda. A mattress soaks up years of sleep, and the sweat and the smells that come with it, and you cannot exactly throw it in the wash. The old way to freshen one was the yellow box again. You stripped the bed, sprinkled baking soda across the bare mattress in an even layer, and let it sit for a good hour or two, longer if you could, then vacuumed it all off before making the bed back up. The soda drew the trapped moisture and neutralized the settled-in odors down in the surface of the mattress, and the vacuum lifted it all away, leaving the bed smelling clean and fresh again. Careful homemakers made this part of the spring cleaning and did it whenever somebody had been sick in bed for a stretch, to give the mattress a real freshening. It could not get any other way. The benefit was a fresher place to sleep, especially for anyone bothered by musty smells or tender lungs, all for pennies and a little time. The one thing to mind was giving it long enough to work, and then vacuuming thoroughly, since fine powder left behind in the mattress did nobody any good. Some folks added a few drops of a favorite oil to the box first, lavender or a bit of vanilla, so the bed carried a faint clean scent besides. Past that, it was simple and safe, and it cost a fraction of the mattress sprays and toppers people buy now. To chase the same fresh feeling was airing out and freshening the mattresses part of the big spring cleaning in your house. Windows open and beds stripped bare in the morning light. Number 61. Cleaning the comb and hairbrush with hydrogen peroxide. The comb and brush on the dresser got dirty in a way that was easy to ignore, packed with oil and dust and loose hair until the bristles were coated gray. People who kept a tidy vanity cleaned them, and hydrogen peroxide made quick work of it. You pulled the loose hair out first, then let the comb and brush soak in a bowl of peroxide, or peroxide and a little water, for a few minutes. The peroxide cut through the built-up scalp oil and disinfected the bristles, killing what had settled in there, and it fizzed away clean into water and oxygen, with no film left on the teeth or the bristles. A rinse and a dry, and they were fresh again, safe to run through clean hair. This was part of keeping a neat dressing table in a time when a good brush was meant to last for years, and got taken care of accordingly. The good was clean, sanitary combs and brushes for a few cents, gentler than scrubbing at them dry. The small cautions were to keep the soak short on anything with a wooden handle or back, since a long soak is hard on wood, and to test a colored comb, since peroxide can lighten. For an ordinary comb and brush, though, it left them clean as new. Did your family keep a good hairbrush for years and take real care of it? Or was that a thing of a more particular household than yours? Number 60. Scrubbing and deodorizing the wooden cutting board with vinegar. The wooden cutting board did the hardest, dirtiest work in the kitchen, taking the knife over raw onions, garlic, fish, and meat day after day, and it held onto smells and germs down in the grain, where soap did not reach. The old way to clean it right was vinegar. You wiped the board down with straight white vinegar, or laid a vinegar-soaked cloth over it for a few minutes, then rinsed and dried it standing up. The acid cut the grease and the food film, killed a good share of the surface bacteria, and neutralized the strong smells that soaked into the wood, so the board that had cut fish for supper did not flavor the bread you sliced on it in the morning. Cooks who used a wooden board every day kept it clean this way, rather than soaking it in a sink full of dishwater, which warps and cracks good wood. The good was a clean, fresher, safer board for a splash of vinegar, and no harsh chemical near the food. The one rule you honored was never letting the board soak or sit wet, since standing water is what ruins a wooden board. So you cleaned it quick and stood it up to dry, a rub of oil now, and then kept it from drying out. For the everyday board, vinegar kept it honest. Did your family cook on a well-worn wooden board that had been in the kitchen for years, seasoned and scarred by 1,000 suppers? Number 59. Cleaning the cast iron skillet with baking soda. The cast iron skillet was the workhorse of the kitchen, handed down and guarded like an heirloom. And the one rule everybody knew was that you did not scrub it with soap and steel wool, or you would strip away the seasoning that made it cook so well. So when something stuck or burned onto the pan, the gentle answer was baking soda. You sprinkled a little into the warm skillet with a splash of water and worked it around with a cloth or a stiff brush, and the mild grit lifted the stuck-on food loose, without cutting into the smooth, black, seasoned surface. Then you rinsed, dried it quick over the burner so it would not rust, and wiped it with a thin coat of oil to keep it ready. Generations of cooks kept a good skillet going for 50 years and more this way. What made baking soda the right tool was that it was just abrasive enough to clean, and just gentle enough to spare the seasoning, the exact balance a cast iron pan needs. The catch was that a truly baked-on blackened mess sometimes needed a little more work, a longer soak or a second pass, since you were holding back on purpose. And you always dried it fast, because standing water is a cast iron pan's one true enemy. For the daily cleanup, though, the soda kept the family skillet perfect. Do you still have a cast iron pan that belonged to somebody who came before you? And do you guard its seasoning the same way they did? Number 58. Keeping the ants out with a line of vinegar. Every spring the ants found their way in, a thin marching line across the kitchen counter, or along the windowsill, straight to whatever crumb they had scented. Before the sprays and the traps, people kept them back with vinegar. You wiped down the counters, the sills, and the ants trail with straight white vinegar, and the line broke up and the ants lost their way. The reason it works is clever. Ants follow an invisible scent trail that the scouts lay down for the others, and the vinegar wipes that chemical trail clean away, so the ones behind cannot find the path, and the parade falls apart. Homemakers used it right where the ants came in, along the baseboards and around the door, keeping the kitchen clear without spraying poison across the counters, where food was made and children reached. The good was a simple, safe ant deterrent using something already on hand. No fumes and nothing dangerous left on the surfaces. The honest limit is that it breaks the trail and cleans up the scent rather than killing the colony, so the ants could try again, and you might wipe more than once. And a serious infestation was a bigger problem than a rag could solve. For the first thin line of spring ants, though, a vinegar wipe sent them packing. Did the ants come every spring in your house too? And did somebody meet them at the counter with a vinegar rag every time? Number 57. Breathing in the menthol over a steaming bowl of Vicks. When a cold settled into your chest and your head, and you could not get a full breath through your stuffed-up nose, somebody in the house set up the steam. They stirred a spoonful of Vicks into a bowl of hot, steaming water, sat you down over it with a towel tented over your head to catch the vapor, and had you breathe it in slow. The relief came quick. The heat and the moisture loosened the congestion, and the menthol rising in the steam hit the cold-sensing nerves in your nose and throat, giving that open, breathing easy feeling. That let you finally draw a full breath. It was a folk remedy, more than a labeled use, but nearly every family had some version of it during the winter sick season. The good was real comfort during a miserable cold, drawn from the jar already in the cabinet. The cautions here are worth saying plainly. You never heated the Vicks itself on the stove or in the microwave, since it can catch fire and the concentrated vapors are harsh, and you always let hot water do the warming instead. And this was for older children and grown-ups, never for a baby or a very small child, whose airways the strong camphor and menthol can overwhelm. Done right for the right person, it opened you up when nothing else would. Did somebody set you up with a towel over a steaming bowl when you were sick as a child? And did that sharp menthol smell come to mean comfort to you? Number 56. Freshening a sour dishcloth with hydrogen peroxide. The dishcloth over the faucet took a lot of abuse, and after a few days of wiping counters and drying hands, it went sour, holding a smell that a plain rinse could not shake. Rather than reach for a clean one every day, thrifty households freshened the cloth they had. You soak the dishcloth in a bowl of hydrogen peroxide, or peroxide cut with water, let it sit and bubble through the fibers, then wrung it out and let it dry. The peroxide broke down the bacteria and the mildew that had settled into the damp cloth and caused the smell, killing it at the source and rinsing away clean, so the cloth came back fresh instead of sour. In homes where a stack of dishcloths was meant to last for years and get used hard, this kept them all in service. The good was a clean, fresh cloth and less laundry, all for a splash from the brown bottle. The honest limits were the usual ones for peroxide on fabric. You kept it to the white and undyed cloths, since it can lighten a color, and a cloth that had gone truly gray and threadbare was better retired to the rag pile than revived. For an everyday cotton dishcloth with a sour smell, though, it did the job. Did your kitchen have a proper drawer of dishcloths that got used and washed and used again, the way most kitchens once did? Number 55. Rubbing the crayon and scuff marks off the walls with baking soda. Every house with children, eventually, had the walls to prove it. Crayon scribbles down low where the little ones reached, and black scuff marks where furniture and shoes had grazed the paint. Scrubbing at them with a wet rag only smeared the mess around. Baking soda took it off. You put a little soda on a damp cloth or sponge and rubbed the mark gently, and the crayon wax and the scuff came up and wiped away, leaving the paint underneath unharmed. The soda works as a fine, gentle abrasive, just rough enough to lift the waxy crayon and the rubber scuff off the surface, without scrubbing away the paint or leaving a dull, scratched patch behind. Mothers all over the country knew this one, because a fresh coat of paint was expensive, and a box of baking soda was not, and children never ran short of new ideas for the walls. The good was clean walls without repainting. For pennies and a little rubbing, the one thing you watched was the paint itself, since a flat or delicate finish took a gentler touch than a hard gloss, and you tested a hidden spot first before you went after the mark in the middle of the living room. For everyday crayon and scuffs, though, the box saved the wall. Did your walls carry the marks of a busy childhood? And did somebody in your house wage a patient war on the crayon with a damp cloth and a little soda? Number 54. Using vinegar as the rinse aid in the dishwasher. Once the dishwasher became common, so did the film. The dishes came out clean but coated in a dull, spotty haze, and the store sold a special blue liquid to fix it. Plenty of families skipped that and used vinegar instead. You poured white vinegar into the rinse aid compartment, or set a small cup of it upright on the top rack, and ran the load as usual. During the rinse, the vinegar cut through the hard water film and the leftover soap scum that dried into spots on the glasses and the plates, so everything came out clear and shining instead of cloudy. It kept the inside of the machine cleaner too, cutting the buildup that clogs the jets over time. Homemakers who watched the grocery bill loved that a jug of vinegar did the same work as the pricey rinse aid for a fraction of the cost. The good was spot-free dishes and a cleaner machine for pennies a load. The one caution folks came to learn was to go easy and check the machine's own advice, since a few of the newer dishwashers had rubber seals and parts that did not love a steady diet of acid, so some people used it now and then rather than every single load. For clearing the film off the glassware, though, it worked. Did your family fight the dishwasher haze with a cup of vinegar, or pay for the blue stuff off the shelf? Number 53. Scrubbing the onion and fish smell off your hands with baking soda. You could spend an afternoon in the kitchen and carry it on your hands for the rest of the day. That stubborn smell of cut onion, garlic, or fish that clung no matter how much you washed with soap. Baking soda got it off. You wet your hands, rubbed a spoonful of baking soda between them like a scrub, then rinsed, and the smell went down the drain with it. Those strong food smells come from oily compounds that cling to the skin, and the baking soda neutralizes them and helps scrub the oils loose, where plain soap just slides over the top of them. Cooks who cleaned fish or chopped onions by the bagful learned this quick, and it saved them from smelling like supper long after the dishes were done. The good was clean-smelling hands after messy kitchen work, using what was already at the sink for next to nothing. There was almost no downside. only that a heavy hand with the soda day after day could dry the skin a little, so a dab of lotion afterward set things right. Forgetting the onion and the fish off your hands, though. Nothing in the kitchen worked faster or cheaper. Did somebody in your family clean fish or put up vegetables by the bushel? And did they keep the baking soda right there by the sink to wash the smell away when they were done? Number 52. Cleaning the makeup brushes with hydrogen peroxide. A woman who took care of her few good makeup brushes wanted them clean, not just for looks but for her skin, since a dirty brush holds old makeup, oil, and bacteria that go right back onto the face. Hydrogen peroxide gave them a deep, sanitizing clean. You swirled the brushes in a little peroxide, or peroxide and mild soap, worked the bristles gently, then rinsed them well and laid them flat to dry. The peroxide broke down the caked-on makeup and the skin oils and disinfected the bristles, killing what had built up in them, and it rinsed away clean, with nothing left behind to irritate the skin. In a time when good brushes were meant to last and be looked after, this kept them fresh and safe to use. The good was clean, sanitary brushes for a few cents, gentler and cheaper than any special brush cleaner. The cautions were about care. You kept the soak short and away from the glued base where the bristles meet the handle. Since too long a soak loosens that glue, you rinsed thoroughly, and you reshaped the bristles and let them dry flat so they held their shape. For keeping a good set of brushes clean and kind to the skin, though, the brown bottle did the job. Did somebody in your family have a treasured set of anything, brushes or tools or good pens, that they cleaned and cared for so it lasted a lifetime? Number 51. Loosening a rusted, stuck bolt with vinegar. Out in the garage or the shed, sooner or later you met a bolt or a nut that had rusted itself solid, frozen in place, so tight that no wrench would budge it without stripping the head. Before the penetrating oils came in a spray can, plenty of people freed a stuck bolt with plain vinegar. You soaked a rag in white vinegar and wrapped it tight around the rusted joint. Or if you could, drop the whole rusted piece into a jar of vinegar to sit for a few hours or overnight. The acid went to work eating away at the rust that had welded the threads together. And once that corrosion loosened its grip, the bolt turned free again. Farmers, mechanics, and every man with a workbench knew a version of this, because a jug of vinegar was cheap, and a broken bolt or a stripped nut was a real headache. The good was a freed bolt and a saved part for the price of a soak in vinegar. The honest limits are worth knowing. It worked slow, so it wanted time and patience rather than a quick spray, and a very heavy, deep rust sometimes needed more than vinegar alone could give. And you dried and oiled the part afterward, since the acid that ate the rust would encourage more if you left it wet. For an ordinary rusted bolt, though, vinegar and a little patience broke it loose. Was there a workbench in your family's garage where somebody puzzled out fixes like this? Jar of vinegar close at hand. Number 50. The magic paste of baking soda and hydrogen peroxide for a baked-on pan. Halfway down the list sits the combination that earns its keep more than almost any other. The paste that tackles the messes nothing else could touch. When a cookie sheet or a roasting pan had years of burnt-on brown grease baked into it, the kind you could no longer scrub off no matter how hard you tried, you made a thick paste of baking soda and hydrogen peroxide and spread it all over the crusted surface. You let it sit for a good while, sometimes hours, then scrubbed, and the black, baked-on grime that had defied you for so long finally lifted away. This is the real workhorse combo, not the showy fizzing kind. The baking soda gives the grit to scour, and the peroxide oxidizes and breaks down the carbonized grease and grime, and together they loosen what a single cleaner cannot. Cleaning-minded homemakers passed this one around like a prize, because it rescued pans that looked fit for the trash. The good was a pan brought back from the dead for pennies. No caustic oven cleaner and no fumes. The catch was time and effort, since the paste needed to sit, and the scrubbing still asked something of your arm. And you kept the peroxide off surfaces you did not want lightened. For the worst baked-on messes in the kitchen, though, this paste was the champion. Have you ever brought a ruined-looking pan back to life this way, and felt like you had gotten away with something? Number 49. Reviving a head of wilted greens in cold vinegar water. The lettuce and the greens from the garden or the market did not always make it to the table crisp. By the time you got to them, they could go limp and sad in the crisper, and it seemed a shame to throw good food out. The old cooks knew how to bring them back. You filled a bowl or the sink with cold water and a splash of vinegar, and set the wilted greens in to soak for a little while. They came out crisp and perked up, ready for the salad bowl. The cold water rehydrated the leaves, and the touch of vinegar helped firm them up and knocked back any surface bacteria that had started the wilting. So a head of lettuce that looked done for was good as new. This mattered in households that grew their own or bought in season by the bagful, where wasting a wilted head was wasting real work and real money. The good was rescued produce and less waste, using nothing but cold water and a little vinegar. The one limit was honesty about how far gone was too far gone, since a soak revives a limp, tired head, but cannot bring back one that has truly rotted or slimed. For greens that were merely wilted, though, the cold vinegar bath worked like a small miracle. Did your family grow their own greens? And did somebody know exactly how to freshen up a tired head before supper? Number 48. Treating a stubborn toenail with Vicks. This one gets talked about more than almost any other, and it deserves an honest telling. A thick, yellowed, troubled toenail is a common and frustrating thing, and people have long rubbed Vicks onto the nail every day, covered it with a sock, and waited, hoping to see clear new growth come in. Some people do report the nail slowly improving over many months. The camphor, menthol, and eucalyptus oils in the ointment have some mild ability to fight the fungus that causes the trouble, and the greasy base keeps the nail conditioned while it grows. It became a favorite because it was cheap, safe to try, and already in the house, when the alternative was an expensive trip to the doctor. Here is where the honesty matters. The results are slow and far from certain. This is a stubborn problem, and a nail grows out over the better part of a year. So patience was the price of admission. Many people saw only partial help, and a truly bad case, or one that spreads or turns painful, is a job for a real doctor or a podiatrist who has stronger tools than the blue jar. So it was worth a careful try, with clear eyes about what it could and could not do. Did you or somebody you know ever try the Vicks trick on a bad toenail? And did it help? Or did it turn out to be one of those things that worked better in the telling than on the toe? Number 47. Scrubbing the grill grates with baking soda. When the weather turned warm and the grill came out of the shed, the grates were usually a mess, crusted black with the charred remains of last season's burgers and chicken. Rather than reach for a harsh degreaser you would then be cooking food on, plenty of folks cleaned the grates with baking soda. You sprinkled it generously over the damp grates, or made a paste and worked it in with a stiff brush. Let it sit a bit to loosen the char, then scrubbed and rinsed. The mild abrasive grit of the soda cut through, the baked-on carbon and grease and scoured the metal clean. And because it was just baking soda, there was nothing toxic left behind on the surface where your food would sit. Families who grilled all summer kept the grates clean this way, week after week, without worry. The good was clean grates and safe food for pennies. No chemical degreaser near the cooking surface. The catch was the same as it always is with soda, plain effort. Since a whole season of baked-on char sometimes wanted an overnight soak in soapy water with a soda scrub the next morning, rather than a quick pass. A stiff wire brush helped, and a sheet of foil laid over the hot grates first could loosen a lot of it before you ever touched a brush. For keeping the grill honest and clean, though, the box did the job right, and it did it without leaving a chemical taste. In the first burgers of summer, was the first grill out of the season a real event in your family? And did cleaning up those neglected grates come first before anybody could eat? Number 46. Cleaning the humidifier with hydrogen peroxide. Through the dry winter months, the humidifier ran in the sick room and the bedroom, putting moisture back in the air. But the tank was a place where scale and slime built up fast in the standing water. A dirty humidifier does nobody any good, since it can blow that funk right back into the air you breathe. Hydrogen peroxide cleaned it out. You poured peroxide into the empty tank, let it sit and bubble through to reach every corner, gave it a swish, then emptied and rinsed it well before filling it fresh. The peroxide broke down the mineral scale and disinfected the tank, killing the mold and bacteria that had settled in the damp. then rinsed away clean into water and oxygen, with nothing harsh left to breathe in. Careful households, especially ones with a family member prone to colds or breathing trouble, kept the humidifier clean this way all season. The good was clean, safe moisture in the air for a few cents, gentler than harsh cleaners near where people slept. The one rule you never broke was the thorough rinse, since you did not want to run the machine with any cleaner still in the tank, and you followed the maker's word on the finer units. For keeping the winter humidifier clean, though, the brown bottle earned its place beside it. Did a humidifier hum through the winter nights in your house? And did somebody keep it clean so it did more good than harm? Number 45. Rinsing your hair shiny with vinegar. Long before the shelves filled with rows of conditioner and shine sprays, women rinsed their hair with vinegar to make it soft and shining, and the ones who did swore their hair never looked better. After washing, you rinsed with water and a splash of vinegar, usually the apple cider kind for this, though plain white worked too. Then rinsed once more with clean water. The vinegar stripped away the dulling soap film and the hard water buildup that left hair limp and flat, and it smoothed the hair down so it caught the light and shone, and it left the scalp fresher besides. This was a beauty secret passed from mother to daughter in a time when a store-bought conditioner was a luxury and a jug of vinegar was already in the pantry. The good was soft, shining, clean hair for almost nothing, and relief for an itchy, flaky scalp for many who tried it. The one thing to mind was the smell and the rinse, since you wanted that final pass of clean water, so the vinegar scent faded as the hair dried, and it did fade completely. You also went a little lighter if your hair ran dry rather than oily, and mixed the vinegar with enough water that it never sat strong on the scalp, for shine and softness on a budget, though the vinegar rinse was a well-kept secret, and the fancy clarifying rinses that sell for good money now are chasing the very same result the pantry jug gave for pennies. Did the women in your family rinse their hair with vinegar, and did the whole bathroom carry that tang on wash day before it faded off into nothing? Number 44. A pinch of baking soda in the scrambled eggs. Not every cabinet hack cleaned something. Some of them cooked, and this was one the good breakfast cooks knew. A small pinch of baking soda beaten into the eggs before they hit the pan made the scrambled eggs and the omelets come out lighter, fluffier, and higher than they would have otherwise. The reason is simple chemistry. The baking soda releases tiny bubbles of carbon dioxide as the eggs cook, and those bubbles lift the eggs and give them that soft, airy, cloud-like texture. That makes a plate of scrambled eggs something special instead of dense and flat. Cooks who fed a hungry family every morning learned little tricks like this to make plain, cheap food better, and eggs were the everyday breakfast in most houses. The good was fluffier, prettier eggs for a pinch of something already in the cupboard. No cost and no trouble. Some cooks used the same trick to take the harsh edge off a pot of tomato sauce or a mess of greens, since a pinch of soda cuts acidity, and others swore by a little in the pancake batter for a taller stack. The catch was purely in the measure, since a pinch was all it took, and a heavy hand left a faint soapy, mineral taste that ruined the whole plate. Restraint was the whole secret, a light hand and no more. Used that way, it turned ordinary eggs into the kind of breakfast people remembered for the rest of their lives. Did somebody in your family have a little trick that made their eggs, or their pancakes, or their biscuits better than anybody else's? One they never quite explained. Number 43. Stripping the mildew smell out of the towels with vinegar. Every household eventually met the problem of the towel that would not come clean smelling. You washed it, you dried it, and the second it got damp again, that musty, mildewed smell came right back, because the buildup of soap and mildew was locked deep in the fibers where regular washing could not reach. Vinegar broke that cycle. You ran the towels through a hot wash with a good cup or two of white vinegar and no soap, which stripped out the built-up detergent residue and killed the mildew living in it. And often you followed with a second wash, using a little baking soda to freshen them the rest of the way. The towels came out of that treatment smelling clean and fresh again, and drying soft and absorbent the way they had when they were new. Homemakers who wanted their linens right kept this trick close, since good towels were meant to last for years, and a musty smell was no reason to throw them out. The good was rescued towels and fresh linens for pennies. The one thing to remember was to run the vinegar wash on its own, never in the same load as bleach, since those two together turned dangerous. For a load of sour, musty towels, though, the vinegar strip brought them back. Did your family have a proper linen closet full of towels that got used and washed for years, back before towels were something you tossed and replaced? Number 42. Disinfecting the toothbrush with hydrogen peroxide. The toothbrush sat out in the open in the bathroom, and it picked up more than most people cared to think about, from the mouth itself and from the room around it. Careful folks kept the brush clean by soaking it in hydrogen peroxide. You dip the head of the brush in a little cup of peroxide, let it fizz through the bristles for a minute or two, then rinsed it well before using it. The peroxide killed the germs and the bacteria clinging to the bristles, and broke apart the buildup down in them, then rinsed clean away with nothing harsh left behind to put in your mouth. This mattered especially after somebody had been sick, when families would disinfect the whole household's brushes, so a cold or the flu did not keep passing from one person to the next around the same bathroom. The good was a clean, sanitary brush for a few cents and a minute of time. The cautions were plain. You rinsed the brush well before it went anywhere near your mouth, and you kept the peroxide at the ordinary 3% household strength, which was all anybody had in the cabinet anyway. Some folks kept a small cup of it by the sink and gave the brush a quick dip after every use, especially anyone getting over a cold or a sore throat. For keeping the family's toothbrushes clean, especially through the long winter sick season, when one bug seemed to circle the whole house, the brown bottle did quiet, useful work. Did your family swap out or disinfect the toothbrushes after everybody had passed a cold around the house? Number 41. A spoonful of baking soda in water for heartburn. This is one of the oldest uses of all, and one right on the side of the box, though it calls for a careful word. When heartburn or an acid stomach came on after a heavy meal, people stirred a small spoonful of baking soda into a glass of water and drank it down, and the burning eased. The reason is straightforward. Heartburn is stomach acid, and baking soda is a base, so it neutralizes that acid and calms the burn. The very same thing the pink and white tablets at the drugstore do, only cheaper and already in the kitchen. Grandparents reached for this long before the fancy antacids existed, and it brought real, quick relief for an occasional upset. Here is where the care comes in, and it matters. This was for the occasional bout. A small spoonful now and then, not a daily habit, since baking soda is high in salt, and too much can throw the body off. And it was not the thing for anyone on a low-salt diet or with certain conditions. And heartburn that came often or would not quit was a sign to see a doctor, not to keep dosing at home. Used the way the box itself says, though, for the once-in-a-while burn. It was honest, simple relief. Did somebody in your family reach for the baking soda after a big Sunday dinner? And did it settle things the way the store tablets do? Number 40. Keeping the cut flowers fresh with vinegar and sugar. A vase of cut flowers on the table was a small luxury, and there was heartbreak in watching them wilt and droop after only a day or two. The old homemakers had a way to stretch that bloom out. Into the vase water, they stirred a little vinegar and a little sugar, and the flowers held their color and their shape days longer than they would have on plain water. The two worked together. The sugar fed the cut flowers the food they could no longer draw from a root, and the vinegar's acid held back the bacteria and mold that cloud the water and clog the stems and rot a bouquet from the bottom up. It was a homemade version of the little packet the florist tucks in the box, made from two things in the kitchen. This came from an age when a fresh bunch of flowers was not a small thing, whether cut from your own garden or brought home for a birthday, and you wanted every day out of them you could get. The good was a longer-lasting bouquet for nearly nothing. The one thing to mind was the measure, since too much of either threw the balance off, so a modest spoonful of each did the trick. For keeping the table flowers fresh a good while longer, though, the pantry had the answer. Did somebody in your family grow flowers for the table, or fuss over a birthday bouquet to make it last, with a little something stirred into the water? Number 39. Rubbing Vicks on the soles of the feet for a nighttime cough. Here is the one that gets argued over more than any other. The trick that half the country swears by. When a cough kept a child up all night, somebody rubbed a thick coat of Vicks on the soles of the feet, pulled thick socks on over it, and put the child to bed. And the story goes that the coughing settled and sleep finally came. Families pass this along like gospel, and plenty of people will tell you to this day that it worked every time. Now the honest part. The doctors will tell you there is no clear reason rubbing the feet should quiet a cough, and the evidence for it is thin, mixed at best. What likely helped was the whole comfort of it, the warmth of the socks, the calming ritual, the menthol smell in the air near the bed, doing what menthol does. That comfort is real even if the mechanism is a mystery, and a child who feels cared for settles easier. So it lived on, not because it was proven, but because it seemed to help and it did no harm on the feet. It was a folk remedy in the truest sense, and it kept its place in the cabinet on the strength of 1,000 good nights of sleep. Did your family rub Vicks on the feet for a cough? And do you count yourself a believer, or one of the doubters who thinks it was the socks and the love all along? Number 38. Keeping the litter box down with baking soda. Anybody who kept a cat indoors knew the particular challenge of the litter box and the smell that could take over a whole room if you let it. Long before the special scented litters filled the pet aisle, people managed it with the yellow box. You sprinkled a layer of baking soda into the bottom of the pan before adding the litter, and mixed a little more in when you freshened it, and the smell stayed down. The soda neutralized the sharp, acidic odor of the box at its source, rather than trying to bury it under a perfume, and it drew off some of the dampness besides. Cat-keeping households leaned on this because it was cheap, it was safe around the animal, and it actually worked where a scented spray only made things worse by piling one smell on another. The good was a fresher room for pennies, and nothing harsh where the cat had to breathe and dig. The one caution was a light hand and good sense, since the point was to keep the box pleasant, not to overwhelm it, and a very finicky cat sometimes objected to too much of anything new. It was no substitute for scooping and changing the box regularly, only a help alongside it. Kept simple, though, the box did quiet, thankless work, and it did it for a fraction of what the deodorizing litters and pet sprays cost on the shelf now. Did your family have a cat? And did somebody keep a box of baking soda right next to the litter for exactly this reason? Number 37. Lifting a wine or coffee stain out of the carpet with hydrogen peroxide. A spilled glass of red wine or a dropped cup of coffee on a light carpet was the kind of accident that made a whole room go quiet. Those stains sink in fast and set dark, and scrubbing only spreads them wider. The families who knew the trick reached for hydrogen peroxide. After blotting up what you could, you dabbed peroxide onto the stain, let it fizz and work, then blotted again and repeated until the color lifted out. The peroxide oxidized the pigment of the wine or the coffee and broke it apart right out of the carpet fibers, lifting the stain rather than pushing it deeper the way water and rubbing would. Best of all, since it was a gentle bleach, it did the work without leaving a harsh chemical smell in the room. Homemakers with light carpets and busy families kept the brown bottle handy for exactly these emergencies. The good was a saved carpet for a few cents, where a professional cleaning cost dear. The honest cautions were about color, and they mattered. On a light or white carpet, it was close to a miracle, but on a deep or brightly dyed one, it could lift the carpet's own color along with the stain, so you always tested a hidden corner first. On the right carpet, though, it turned a disaster back into an ordinary evening. Did a spill on the good carpet ever bring your whole family to a standstill, everyone hunting for the thing that would take it out? Number 36. Freshening the garbage disposal with baking soda and vinegar. The sink drain and the disposal underneath it could turn into the worst-smelling spot in the whole kitchen, holding onto the ghosts of everything that had gone down it. The old way to freshen, it used the two cabinet staples together. You shook a good measure of baking soda down into the drain, poured vinegar after it, and let the whole thing foam and bubble up through the disposal, then flushed it down with hot water, and often you finished by grinding a few cut lemon or orange peels for good measure. The soda and vinegar scrubbed and loosened the gunk clinging inside the drain and the disposal, and the citrus left a clean, bright smell where a sour one had been. Households did this whenever the sink started talking back, keeping the kitchen fresh without pouring chemicals down where the food waste went. The good was a fresher kitchen for pennies, an appeal you were going to throw out anyway. The honest note is the same as with the drain. that the fizz is more show than deep cleaning, and the real freshening comes from the scrubbing action, the hot water flush, and that bit of citrus. Some folks kept it simpler still, and froze the soda and a little water into cubes with a scrap of lemon peel inside, then ground those through now, and then to scour and freshen the blades all at once, for keeping the disposal from turning the whole kitchen sour. Though, it did the job for pennies, where the drink-a-tin liquid cleaners cost real money. Did your family run lemon or orange peels through the disposal to sweeten it? And did the kitchen smell bright as morning afterward? Number 35. Softening the dried beans faster with a pinch of baking soda. Beans were the backbone of many a table, cheap and filling, but they took forever to soak and cook tender, and a busy cook did not always have all day. The old kitchen trick was a pinch of baking soda added to the soaking water or the cooking pot. A small amount of soda softened the dried beans faster and helped them cook up tender in less time. The reason is chemistry again. The alkaline soda breaks down the tough outer skins and the pectin holding the beans firm, so they give up and soften sooner than they would in plain water. Cooks feeding a big family on a bean and cornbread budget learned this to get supper on the table without the pot simmering the whole day through. The good was tender beans in less time and less fuel, a real saving in a house that watched both. The honest catch was the measure and the trade, since too much baking soda turned the beans mushy and could flatten their flavor and rob a little of their goodness. So it was a small pinch and no more. Some cooks skipped it for that reason and just planned ahead with a long soak, used with a light hand when time was short, though it got the beans to the table. Was a pot of beans a regular thing in your family's kitchen, simmering low on the back of the stove, filling the whole house with that smell? Number 34. Cleaning your eyeglasses with a little vinegar. For anybody who wore glasses, keeping the lenses truly clean was a daily frustration, since a swipe on your shirt tail only smeared the grime around and left them filmy. Some folks cleaned their glasses with a weak mix of vinegar and water. You dampened a soft cloth with the diluted vinegar, wiped the lenses and buffed them dry, and the acid cut through the oily film, the fingerprints, and the residue that a dry wipe just moved from one spot to another, leaving the glass clear. In a time when a pair of glasses was a real expense meant to last for years, keeping them clean and cared for was part of the bargain. The good was clean, clear lenses for next to nothing. The honest caution here is a real one and worth saying plainly. Many modern glasses have delicate coatings on the lenses, an anti-glare layer or a scratch guard, and vinegar's acid can harm those coatings over time. So this suited the plain old glass and the simpler lenses better than the treated kind. For those, a drop of dish soap and warm water is the safer bet, and you always went gentle and dried with something soft rather than a rough paper towel that could scratch. On plain lenses, though, a little diluted vinegar cut the film clean, where a dry swipe on your sleeve only made things worse. Did somebody in your family wear the same trusted pair of glasses for years, cleaned and cared for, and never carelessly tossed down on the table? Number 33. Working the crick out of a stiff neck with Vicks. You slept wrong, or you spent the day hunched over a task, and you woke up with your neck locked stiff and sore. The kind of crick that follows you around all day. The blue jar helped with that too. You rubbed a fingerful of Vicks into the stiff, sore muscles of the neck and shoulders, working it in until the warmth and the tingle set in, and the tight, gripping soreness eased its hold. The camphor and menthol act as counter-irritants, stirring up a warm, tingling sensation on the surface that draws the nerves away from the deep ache underneath, and the act of rubbing it in worked the tight muscle loose besides. Working folks, and anybody who woke up wrong, leaned on this at the start of a hard day, when they could not afford to be slowed down by a sore neck. The good was quick, cheap relief from something already in the house. No pill and no doctor for an everyday stiffness. The honest limit is that it eased the feeling more than it fixed the cause. So a serious, lasting neck problem still wanted real care, and you kept the strong ointment away from broken skin and the eyes. For the common morning crick, though, that warming rub loosened things up enough to get on with the day. Did somebody in your house reach for the Vicks whenever a stiff neck or a sore shoulder came calling? Number 32. Getting streak-free glass with hydrogen peroxide. Vinegar was not the only cabinet staple that shined up glass. Hydrogen peroxide cut with a little water in a spray bottle, made a fine streak-free cleaner for windows and mirrors too, and some folks swore by it over anything else. You misted it onto the glass and wiped it down with a clean, lint-free cloth or a sheet of newspaper, and it cut the film, the fingerprints and the grime, and dried clear with no streaks and no haze. On top of the shine, it disinfected the surface as it went, which made it a favorite for the bathroom mirror and any glass that got touched and breathed on all day. Households that kept peroxide around for a dozen jobs found it did this one just as well as the vinegar, and some liked that it left no smell at all where vinegar left its tang. The good was clean, clear, germ-free glass for a few cents, with a pleasant absence of any odor. The one thing to mind was the same rule that always rode along with peroxide, keeping it off the colored curtains, the painted sills, and any fabric nearby, since it can lighten what it lands on, so you always wiped up your drips as you went. On the glass itself, though, it left a clear, clean shine, and it did it for a few cents, where the branded blue sprays kept climbing in price. Did your family have a favorite way to do the windows? A certain cloth and a certain cleaner that got them clearer than anybody else's on the street? Number 31. Taking the musty smell out of a closet or an old trunk with baking soda. Some smells settle in and stay. The closed-up, musty smell of a coat closet, a cedar chest, or an old trunk hauled down from the attic full of quilts and keepsakes. Airing it out helped, but baking soda finished the job. You set an open dish or a small bowl of baking soda inside the closet or the trunk and left it to sit, and over the days, it drew the musty odor right out of the air and out of the fabric. The soda neutralized the settled-in smell at its source and soaked up the trapped dampness that let the mustiness grow in the first place. So a space that had smelled shut up and old came back to smelling like nothing at all. Careful homemakers used this in the linen closet, in dresser drawers, and inside anything that had been packed away too long, tucking a little dish of soda in with the stored things. The good was fresh-smelling closets and keepsakes for pennies, with nothing to stain or overpower the good quilts. The one thing to remember was to refresh the dish now and then, since a spent bowl of soda gave out and needed changing, and a truly damp, mildewed space needed drying out first. For the everyday musty closet, though, a dish of soda cleared the air. Did your family have a cedar chest or an old trunk that smelled of the past the moment you lifted the lid? And did somebody keep it fresh with a little dish of baking soda inside? Number 30. Shining the stainless steel with vinegar. Once stainless steel appliances and sinks came into the kitchen, so did the fingerprints, the streaks, and the dull, smudged film that seemed to appear the moment you finished wiping. Store polishes promised a clean shine, but a lot of folks got a better one from the vinegar jug. You sprayed or wiped white vinegar onto the stainless, wiped it down going with the grain of the metal, then buffed it dry with a soft cloth, and the vinegar cut the greasy film, the water spots, and the fingerprints, leaving the steel clean and bright without a streak. A tiny bit of oil rubbed on afterward, going with the grain, kept the shine and helped fend off the next round of prints. Homemakers who wanted a kitchen that looked cared for kept the vinegar handy for the refrigerator door, the sink, and the range hood. The good was clean, gleaming stainless for pennies, no pricey polish, and no chemical smell in the kitchen. The one thing to mind was to always wipe with the grain of the metal rather than in circles, since going against it or scrubbing in swirls left marks, and to keep the vinegar to the steel and off any nearby stone or delicate finish. Done right, though, it brought the stainless up bright as new. Did your family fuss over keeping the appliances shined and streak-free? And was the secret a bottle off the store shelf, or the same vinegar that did everything else? Number 29. Rescuing a scorch pot with baking soda. Everybody who cooked scorched a pot sooner or later, walked away for a minute too long, and came back to a black, burnt layer welded to the bottom that no amount of scrubbing would shift. Before you gave the pot up for lost, baking soda gave it one more chance. You sprinkled a thick layer of soda over the burnt bottom, added enough water to cover it, and set the pot back on the stove to simmer for a little while. Then let it sit. The soda and water bath loosened the charred, baked-on mess, lifting it off the metal so that what would not budge before, now scraped and wiped away clean. This was a common rescue in kitchens that cooked every day, where a scorched pot was not a thing you could just replace on a whim. The good was a save pot for pennies and a little patience. No harsh scouring and no ruined cookware. A splash of vinegar added to the simmer helped on the really stubborn scorches, and a spoonful of soda left to soak overnight did the gentle work while you slept. The catch was time, since the worst burns wanted a good long simmer, and maybe a second round before they let go. And truly ruined metal was truly ruined. But for the everyday scorch, the ordinary walked away from the stove disaster. That happened in every busy kitchen. The box brought the pot back from the edge for pennies, where a new pot cost real money. Have you ever scorched a pot black and given it up for gone, only to have somebody older show you the baking soda trick and save it? Number 28. Killing the mold and mildew on the bathroom walls with hydrogen peroxide. The bathroom was where mold and mildew loved to grow, in the damp corners, along the caulk around the tub, and on the walls where the steam settled and never fully dried. Those dark spots kept coming back, and the harsh chlorine sprays that fought them filled the little room with choking fumes. Hydrogen peroxide fought the mildew gentler. You sprayed or dabbed peroxide right onto the moldy spots, let it sit and bubble to reach down into the mildew, then scrubbed and wiped it away. The peroxide oxidized and killed the mold and mildew at the root, and bleached out the dark staining they left behind, all while breaking down into nothing but water and oxygen. So there were no harsh fumes trapped in a closed-up bathroom. Careful housekeepers reached for it because it did the job, without the eye-stinging bleach smell, and without the danger of splashing chlorine on a colored towel or bath mat. The good was a cleaner, brighter bathroom for a few cents, and easy breathing while you worked. The honest limits were real. A little surface mildew wiped away easy, but mold growing deep behind the wall or into old, cracked caulk was a bigger problem than any spray could fix, and that meant real repair. And you kept the peroxide off your colors. For the everyday bathroom mildew, though, the brown bottle handled it. Did the mildew keep creeping back in your bathroom, no matter what you did, the way it does in every steamy little room? Number 27. Bringing a stiff, dried-out paintbrush back with vinegar. Out in the garage or the workshop, a good paintbrush that got set down without a proper cleaning dried hard as a board. The bristles cemented stiff with old paint, and it seemed fit only for the trash. Before you threw a good brush out, vinegar could soften it back to life. You heated white vinegar until it was hot, poured it into a can or a jar, and stood the stiff brush in it to soak, sometimes simmering it right in a pot of vinegar on a low flame. And after a good soak, you worked the softened paint out of the bristles with a comb or your fingers and washed it clean. The hot vinegar broke down the dried, hardened paint that had glued the bristles together, freeing them to move again. Handymen and thrifty homeowners knew this, because a quality brush was worth real money, and a dried one was a shame to lose. The good was a saved brush for the price of a little vinegar and some patience. The honest limit was that a brush left dried and stiff for years, truly cemented solid, might be too far gone even for the vinegar, and the soak worked best on paint that had dried but not fossilized. For a brush caught in time, though, it brought the bristles back soft and usable. Was there a workshop or a garage in your family where good tools got saved and mended this way, instead of thrown out and bought again? Number 26. Cleaning out the washing machine itself with vinegar and baking soda. Here is one people forget, that the machine washing everything else needs washing too. Over time, the washer built up a funk of its own, soap scum, mildew, and hard water scale hiding in the drum and the seals, until the clothes came out smelling worse than they went in. The cabinet staples cleaned it out. You ran an empty load on the hottest setting, with a couple of cups of white vinegar poured in, which cut the scum and the scale, and killed the mildew inside the machine. Then ran a second short cycle with baking soda to scrub and freshen the drum the rest of the way, and wiped out the rubber seal where the gunk hid worst. The machine came out clean and odorless, and the next load of laundry smelled right again. Homemakers learned this as the washers themselves aged, since a machine was a big investment meant to run for many years. The good was a fresh, clean washer and better-smelling laundry for pennies. No pricey machine cleaner off the shelf. The one caution was to run the vinegar and the baking soda in separate cycles, rather than together and never near bleach, keeping each doing its own job. For a machine that had started to smell, though, this brought it back. Did your family keep the same washing machine going for years and years? And did somebody know it needed cleaning out now, and then to keep the wash fresh? Number 25. rubbing Vicks into chapped, cracked winter hands. Winter was hard on the hands, especially for anyone who worked with them, and by January the skin could go dry, red, chapped, and cracked at the knuckles, until it hurt to make a fist. The blue jar helped here too. At night you rubbed a good coat of Vicks into the dry, cracked hands, sometimes pulling on a pair of soft gloves over it, and by morning the skin had softened, and the sore cracks had begun to settle. The petroleum jelly base sealed moisture into the parched skin and held it there through the night so the chapping could heal, while the menthol added a mild, soothing to the soreness. People who washed dishes all day, worked outdoors, or handled rough materials leaned on this to keep their hands from splitting open in the cold. The good was softer, less painful hands by morning, using the same jar that did a dozen other jobs. The honest note is the familiar one, that the healing came mostly from the greasy base sealing the skin, not from anything magic in the medicine, and a plain jar of petroleum jelly would have done nearly the same. You also kept it off any open, bleeding crack, where the strong menthol would only sting. For chapped winter hands, though, it brought real relief overnight. Did your hands take a beating every winter? And did you find your own way to keep them from cracking, or learn one from somebody older? Number 24. Soothing a baby's rash with a baking soda bath. When a little one had a bad diaper rash, or a red, prickly heat rash in the summer, and was miserable and fussy with it, the gentle old remedy was a baking soda bath. You stirred a spoonful or two of baking soda into a shallow, warm bath, and let the baby sit and soak for a few minutes, and the fussing eased as the irritated skin calmed down. The mild soda helped settle the itch and the sting of the rash, since it soothed the irritated, inflamed skin, and gently neutralizes what was aggravating it, giving a raw little bottom some relief. Mothers and grandmothers passed this along as a kindness that cost almost nothing, drawn from the same box that sat in the kitchen. The good was real comfort for a hurting baby, gentle and cheap, when a fussy child in pain could unsettle a whole household. The honest cautions belong here, spoken plainly. It was a soothing bath, not a cure, and a rash that would not clear up, or one that looked angry, blistered, or infected, was a sign to call the doctor rather than keep soaking at home. You kept the bath warm and short, and the water shallow, and never left a little one alone in it for a moment. For an ordinary rash, though, that gentle bath brought a hurting baby ease. Did the mothers in your family reach for a baking soda bath to soothe a fussy, rashy baby, passing the trick down the way such things always were? Number 23. Sanitizing the cutting board after raw chicken with hydrogen peroxide. Cutting up raw chicken or other raw meat left the board with more than a mess. It left germs you could not see, and a board that was not cleaned right could carry that trouble straight to the next thing you sliced on it. Hydrogen peroxide gave it a real sanitizing. After washing the board with soap and water, you poured or sprayed peroxide over the surface, let it bubble and sit for a few minutes to do its work, then rinsed it clean. The peroxide killed the bacteria left behind by the raw meat, reaching into the cuts and grooves in the board where germs hide, then broke down into water and oxygen, with nothing harmful left on a surface where food would go. Careful cooks, the ones who understood that a clean-looking board was not always a clean board, kept the brown bottle by the sink for exactly this. The good was a truly sanitized board for a few cents, and real peace of mind about the family's food. The one thing you honored was doing the soap and water wash first, and then the peroxide, letting each do its part, and giving the peroxide a moment to actually work before the rinse, for keeping the kitchen safe after handling raw meat, though it did serious, quiet work. Did somebody in your family drill into you the importance of cleaning the board right after chicken before it ever touched anything else? Number 22. Setting the color in new clothes with vinegar. A new shirt or a pair of jeans in a deep, bright color came with a hidden danger. The dye that ran in the first few washes and bled onto everything else in the load, or faded fast and left the garment looking tired. The old laundry wisdom used vinegar to set the color. Before the first wash, you soaked the new colored garment in a basin of cold water with a good cup of white vinegar, then washed it, and the vinegar helped lock the dye into the fibers, so it held fast instead of bleeding out. It worked because the mild acid helped fix the dye in place, and it did the same job in the rinse water to keep colors from running load after load. Homemakers who wanted their clothes to hold their color and last leaned on this, especially with the deep reds, the dark blues, and anything likely to run and ruin a whole wash. The good was clothes that kept their color and did not bleed onto the whites. For the cost of a little vinegar, the honest limit was that vinegar helped set and preserve a color, but could not fully tame a cheaply dyed garment bound and determined to bleed. So a truly runny new item still wanted washing alone the first time or two. For most new colored clothes, though, the vinegar soak kept them true. Did the women in your family have a whole set of rules for the wash? Tricks like this that kept the clothes looking good for years. Number 21. Getting the stains and smells out of the plastic containers with baking soda. Every kitchen ended up with a cabinet full of plastic containers, the ones that held the leftovers, and they had a way of holding onto more than the food. Tomato sauce stained them orange, and last week's onions or garlic left a smell that no wash seemed to shake. So you opened a clean container and it still smelled of supper. Baking soda took care of both. You made a paste of soda and water and rubbed it into the stained, smelly plastic. Or you filled the container with warm water and a spoonful of soda and let it sit overnight. Then washed as usual. The soda scrubbed the orange stain loose and neutralized the trapped smell right out of the plastic, where dish soap only slid over it. Homemakers who saved and reused every container and washed and kept them for years leaned on this to keep them fresh and usable. The good was clean, odorless, unstained containers for pennies. No need to throw a good one out just because it smelled. The one thing to know was that a deep, old orange stain from years of tomato sometimes never came fully out, though the soak lightened it, and the smell always went even when the stain lingered. For everyday stains and smells, though, the box freshened them right up. Did your family wash and save every plastic container and lid, a whole cabinet of them nested together, back before anybody thought to just throw them away? Number 20. Gargling with warm vinegar water for a sore throat. When a sore, scratchy throat came on with a cold, and every swallow was a small misery, the old comfort was a gargle. You stirred a spoonful of vinegar into a glass of warm water, sometimes with a pinch of salt added, tilted your head back, and gargled with it before spitting it out. The relief, while it lasted, was real. The warm water soothed the raw throat, the salt helped draw down the swelling, and the mild acid of the vinegar made the throat a less friendly place for what was irritating it. So the ache eased for a while. Families reached for this at the first tickle of a sore throat, treating it at home with what was in the kitchen before anybody thought about a trip to the doctor. The good was gentle, cheap relief for a common misery, something you could do a few times a day. The honest limits matter and are worth saying. A gargle soothed the surface, but did not cure the cold or the infection underneath. So a throat that turned severe, or came with a high fever, or dragged on for days, was a sign to see a doctor, since some sore throats need real treatment. For the ordinary scratchy throat of a common cold, though, that warm gargle brought comfort. Did somebody in your family stand you at the sink to gargle when your throat hurt? And did you dread it or find it a small relief? Number 19. Rinsing your mouth with diluted hydrogen peroxide. For a canker sore that stung, or just to freshen the mouth, some folks kept up an old habit of rinsing with hydrogen peroxide cut well with water. You mixed the peroxide with an equal part or more of water, swished it around the mouth for a short spell, then spit it all out, careful never to swallow it. The peroxide killed the bacteria in the mouth and around a sore, and the gentle fizzing helped clean the spot, easing the sting of a canker sore and leaving the mouth feeling fresh. This was a common thing to keep in the bathroom routine, cheaper by far than the special mouthwashes and rinses on the shelf. The good was a clean mouth and some relief from a nagging sore for pennies. The cautions here are important and simple. You always cut it well with water rather than using it straight. You never swallowed it, and you kept it to an occasional thing rather than an everyday habit, since overdoing it can irritate the soft tissue of the mouth. A sore that would not heal, or one that kept coming back, was worth showing a dentist or a doctor, since some things that look like a canker sore are not. Used sparingly and diluted, though, it did a gentle job, and it did it for pennies, or the branded rinses kept getting dearer every year. Did your family keep the peroxide in the medicine cabinet, doing double duty as a mouth rinse? Or was that a step your household never took? Number 18. cooling a sunburn with baking soda. Summer always brought a bad sunburn or two. A day at the lake or in the garden that left the skin red, hot and tight, stinging at the lightest touch. The gentle old remedy was baking soda. You could stir a good measure of it into a cool bath and soak in it, or soak a soft cloth in cool baking soda water and lay it over the burn as a compress. Either way, the heat and the sting eased. The soda soothed the inflamed, angry skin and took some of the burning down, and the cool water drew off the heat that a bad burn holds. Families leaned on this before the shelves filled with special sunburn gels, treating a painful burn with what was in the kitchen. The good was real, cheap relief for hot, hurting skin, gentle enough for the whole family after a long day in the sun. The honest limits were plain. It soothed an ordinary sunburn, but did nothing for a severe one that blistered badly or came with chills and sickness, and that kind of burn called for a doctor's eye. You also kept the soak cool rather than hot, since heat only made a burn worse. For the common red, stinging sunburn though, a baking soda soak brought the sting down. Did your family come home from the lake or the beach red as lobsters? And did somebody run a cool baking soda bath to take the fire out? Number 17. Keeping the dog off the couch with Vicks. The blue jar had a use even out in the world of pets. One people traded back and forth. A dog or a cat that would not stay off the good furniture or kept scratching at a door or a spot on the rug could sometimes be discouraged with the smell of Vicks, a little dabbed on a cloth and set near the spot, or placed where the animal kept going, put off the pet with its strong menthol and camphor smell, which animals find far more unpleasant than we do, and often they left the spot alone. Households tried this when a pet had a stubborn bad habit and nothing else had worked. The good was a cheap, simple deterrent from something already in the house. Now the honest and important caution, because this one truly matters. Camphor is toxic to dogs and cats if they lick it or eat it, so you never put it anywhere the animal could reach and taste it, only where the smell alone would keep them off, and even then you watched them. For a lot of folks, a proper pet deterrent from the store was the safer choice, and the smell trick was a last resort used with real care, kept well out of the animal's reach, though the smell alone did sometimes turn a pet aside. Did you ever have a pet with a stubborn habit that the whole family schemed to break? One clever trick at a time. Number 16. Washing the window screens and the dusty blinds with vinegar. Twice a year, come spring and fall cleaning, the window screens and the Venetian blinds got their turn, and they were filthy work, caked with a season's worth of dust, pollen, and grime that a dry cloth only pushed around. Vinegar cut through it. You mixed white vinegar with water, took the screens down and scrubbed them with the solution, or hosed them off after a good wipe, and ran a vinegar-dampened cloth along each slat of the blinds, dust flying. The vinegar cut the greasy, grimy film that dust settles into, and left the screens and slats clean, so the light came through clear again and the air with it. Homemakers who did a real spring cleaning, top to bottom, counted this among the jobs that made the whole house feel scrubbed and new. The good was clean screens and blinds for pennies. No special cleaner needed for a big, dusty job. The one thing to mind was gentleness with old, brittle screens and delicate blinds, working slat by slat so nothing bent or tore, and letting the screens dry fully in the sun before they went back up in the windows. A little dish soap in the vinegar water helped on the really greasy kitchen screens, where cooking grime settled thickest. For the twice-a-year deep clean, though, the vinegar did honest work for pennies, where a special cleaner would have cost real money for such a big job. Was spring cleaning a whole house event in your family, windows thrown open, and every screen and blind taken down and washed? Number 15. Wiping down the inside of the refrigerator with baking soda. The open box in the back of the fridge kept the smells down, but every so often the whole inside needed a real cleaning. The shelves and the drawers, and the corners where a spill had dried, or something had leaked and gone by unnoticed. Baking soda did that job too. You mixed a little soda in warm water and wiped down every surface inside the refrigerator with it, then dried it out. The soda cut the sticky spills and the food film. It deodorized as it cleaned so the whole box came out smelling fresh, and it did it all without a harsh chemical smell left behind where the family's food was going right back in. Careful homemakers gave the fridge this treatment every so often, and always after something had spoiled or spilled, keeping it clean and honest. The good was a truly clean, fresh-smelling refrigerator for pennies, and nothing toxic near the food, which mattered more here than almost anywhere in the house. There was hardly a downside, only the work of emptying it out to reach every corner, and the good sense not to use anything harsh or scented in a space full of food. For cleaning the icebox right, though, the mild soda was exactly the tool. Did cleaning out the refrigerator, really cleaning it, fall to somebody in particular in your house? And was it a dreaded chore or a satisfying one? Number 14. Soaking tired, aching, smelly feet in hydrogen peroxide. Feet took a beating in a working life, and by the end of a long day they could be tired, sore, and none too fresh. And for some folks troubled with a touch of athlete's foot between the toes, an old remedy was a peroxide foot soak. You poured hydrogen peroxide into a basin of warm water, cut well enough not to sting, and soaked the feet in it for a spell. The peroxide killed the germs and the fungus that caused the itch and the odor, cleaning the skin and freshening tired feet. And the warm water soothed the aches of a hard day standing. People who spent their days on their feet leaned on this to keep their feet clean, comfortable, and free of the itch that comes with sweaty shoes and socks. The good was cheap, simple foot care that eased the aches and knocked back the fungus. All from the brown bottle. The honest limits are worth a plain word. A soak helped a mild case, but a stubborn, spreading athlete's foot that would not clear was a job for a doctor and a proper medicine, and you kept the peroxide diluted so it did not sting or dry the skin raw. For tired, itchy, worn-out feet, though, a warm soak brought real relief. Did somebody in your family come home and soak their feet at the end of a hard day? And did the whole house know it was their time to rest? Number 13. Clearing the cooking smells out of the house with a bowl of vinegar. Fry a mess of fish, cook a pot of cabbage, or burn something on the stove, and the smell took over the whole house and lingered for a day, soaked into the curtains and the air. Before anybody sold a plug-in or a spray to cover it, people cleared the air with a bowl of vinegar. You set out an open bowl of white vinegar on the counter, or simmered a little vinegar in a pan of water on the stove, and over an hour or two, the vinegar drew the cooking smell right out of the air. It did not just mask the odor with a stronger one, it actually neutralized the smell molecules floating in the room, so the fish and the cabbage and the smoke faded away and left the house smelling like nothing at all. Homemakers who cooked strong-smelling food, and every kitchen did sometimes, kept this trick close for clearing the air afterward. The good was a fresh-smelling house for pennies. No heavy perfume laid over the top of a bad smell, just the smell gone. The one thing folks came to know was that the vinegar's own tang hung in the air for a little while as it worked, then faded off along with the smell it had chased. So you gave it time and maybe cracked a window. For clearing a house of cooking smells, though, a simple bowl of vinegar did what no spray could. Did your family set out a bowl of vinegar after frying fish? And did the house always come back around to smelling like home? Number 12. Whitening the teeth with baking soda and hydrogen peroxide. People wanted a brighter smile long before the whitening kits and strips filled the drugstore, and the old homemade way put the two cabinet staples together. You mixed a little baking soda with a few drops of hydrogen peroxide into a paste and brushed with it now and then, and over time the teeth looked whiter and brighter. The two worked as a pair. The gentle grit of the baking soda scrubbed away the surface stains from coffee, tea, and tobacco, while the peroxide, the same working part in the store-bought whiteners, oxidized and lifted the deeper staining out of the enamel. It was a fraction of the cost of anything sold for the purpose, made from two things already in the cabinet. Now the honest and important part, because this one has real limits. You did this now and then, not every day, since both the grit and the bleach used too hard or too often can wear at the enamel and irritate the gums, and once enamel is worn, it does not come back. You kept the peroxide diluted, you did not overdo it, and a truly discolored tooth, or one that ached, was a matter for a dentist rather than a home paste. Some folks used the baking soda alone for the everyday brushing, and saved the peroxide mix for once in a great while, which was the gentler road. Used gently and sparingly, though, it did brighten a smile for a few cents where the drugstore kits ran into real money. Did folks in your family have their own tricks for keeping a bright smile back before the whole whitening business existed? Number 11. Mixing your own all-purpose cleaner from vinegar and water. By the time you had heard about half the tricks on this list, you understood the real secret. That one jug of vinegar could clean most of a house all by itself. Homemakers made it official by keeping a spray bottle of vinegar, cut with water, always ready under the sink. The homemade all-purpose cleaner that did the counters, the tables, the appliances, the tile, and the glass. One bottle for nearly everything. You just mixed the two, filled the bottle, and reached for it a dozen times a day. The vinegar cut grease, dissolved hard water spots, wiped away grime, and knocked back germs and odors, all from a spray that cost a few cents a bottle to make. Households that watched their money loved that one homemade bottle replaced a whole cabinet of different colored sprays, each one bought for a single job. The good was a cheap, effective, all-purpose cleaner with no harsh chemicals for tender lungs and no big grocery bill. The one thing you learned was where not to use it, keeping the vinegar off natural stone counters, waxed wood, and a few delicate surfaces its acid did not agree with, and never mixing it with bleach. Some folks dropped a strip of lemon or orange peel into the bottle to soften the smell and lend it a fresher scent, and it worked just as well. For most of the house, though, that one plain bottle did the work of 10, and it did it for pennies, where a shelf of name-brand sprays cost a small fortune. Did your family keep a homemade spray bottle under the sink? And did it clean nearly everything you pointed it at? Number 10. The one box of baking soda that cleaned the whole house. By now you have seen baking soda turn up in the kitchen, the bathroom, the laundry, and the sick room. And that is the whole point of it. This single yellow box did the work of a shelf full of specialty cleansers, each one sold for a single job and a single price. One box scoured the sink, freshened the carpet, deodorized the fridge, boosted the wash, soothed a sting, and brushed the teeth, and it cost less than any one of the products it replaced. The reason it did so much came down to simple chemistry. As a mild abrasive, it scrubbed without scratching. As an alkaline powder, it cut grease and neutralized acids. And as an odor absorber, it swallowed smells rather than covering them. 3 honest jobs in one cheap box. Families who counted every dollar loved it for exactly this. That one thing under the sink and one thing in the pantry handled a dozen chores. The good was plain to see. A whole house kept clean and fresh for pennies, with nothing harsh for a child or a sick person to breathe. The only real limit was that a single box, being so useful, ran out fast in a busy house. So the thrifty kept a spare on hand and never ran short. That so much came from so little is exactly why people miss it. When did a whole cabinet of colored sprays and powders replace the one plain box that used to do it all in your mother's kitchen? Number 9. Cleaning the whole house from top to bottom with vinegar. If baking soda was the box that did everything, vinegar was the jug beside it, and together they were nearly the entire cleaning cabinet of an older home. Come the big spring cleaning, or the scrub down before the holidays when company was coming, the vinegar jug went from room to room. It washed the windows and the mirrors clear, wiped down the counters and the woodwork, cut the scale off the faucets, freshened the floors, stripped the film off the tile, and left the whole house smelling clean underneath, its own sharp tang fading off as it dried. 1 gallon jug bought cheap did what a whole armload of different bottles does now. The acid in it cut grease, dissolved the hard water and soap scum, and knocked back germs and smells, all from a thing you could also cook with and pour on your supper. Households running on a careful budget leaned on that jug for the deep cleans and the everyday ones alike. The good was a whole house made clean and bright for the price of a jug of vinegar, with no harsh fumes to choke on in a closed-up room. The only thing you minded was keeping it off the few surfaces its acid could harm, the stone and the waxed wood, and never crossing it with bleach. For nearly everything else, though, that jug did the whole house. When your family made the house shine for Christmas or Easter, was the smell of that clean, the smell of vinegar working its way through every room. Number 8. The brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide that patched up every scrape. Every home had one. That brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide standing in the medicine cabinet. And for a whole generation, it was the first thing reached for when a child came in bleeding. A skinned knee, a scraped elbow, a cut finger, and out came the brown bottle, tipped over the hurt to run and foam white while you watched. Wide-eyed, sure that the fizzing meant it was working. It cleaned the dirt and the germs out of a fresh scrape, And that dramatic foaming was its whole reputation, proof to scared child that the wound was being made clean. It stood in for a doctor for every small hurt of childhood, cheap and always on hand. Now the honest word, gently, because the science has moved on. Doctors today will tell you that plain saline or clean water and mild soap cleans a wound just as well and is gentler on the healing skin, since the same foaming that thrilled us can be a little hard on the tender new tissue underneath. So peroxide is not the routine wound wash it once was, but for a generation of scraped knees. That brown bottle and its magic fizz meant somebody was taking care of you, and you were going to be all right. There was comfort in the ritual as much as the medicine. Do you remember the sting and the foam of the brown bottle on a summer scrape, and the grown-up hands that tipped it over the hurt and then sent you back out to play? Number 7. Soaking the dentures clean overnight with baking soda. For many an older person, the last chore of the night was tending the teeth that came out. And here too, the plain yellow box did faithful work. A pair of dentures dropped into a glass of water with a spoonful of baking soda stirred in, left to soak on the nightstand overnight, came out in the morning clean, fresh, and free of the day's film and smell. The mild soda lifted the food residue and the stains, and neutralized the odor that built up over a day of wear, all without the harsh scratching that would scar the delicate surface and ruin the fit, long before the fizzing tablets were sold for the purpose, and for pennies against their price. The box on the shelf did the same job just as well. This was quiet, private care, the kind that kept a person's dignity intact, and it deserves its place on the list. The good was clean, fresh, well-kept dentures for almost nothing, and comfort and confidence for the person who wore them. The one thing to know was to use the mild soda soak and a soft brush rather than anything gritty or harsh, which could damage the plate, and to rinse them well before morning, for keeping that most personal thing clean and cared for. Though the box did gentle, dependable work. Did a grandparent in your family keep their teeth in a glass by the bed at night? And was there a spoonful of baking soda stirred into the water? Number 6. Softening the earwax with a few drops of hydrogen peroxide. Here is one that lived quietly in a lot of medicine cabinets. The trick of a few drops of peroxide in a troublesome ear. When wax built up and left an ear feeling stopped up and dull, somebody would tip the head to the side and put a few drops of hydrogen peroxide in, and you would lie there listening to it fizz and crackle as it went to work. The peroxide softened and loosened the hardened wax so it could work its way out on its own, easing that plugged-up, muffled feeling. Families used this as a simple home fix for a common nuisance, cheaper and easier than a trip to the doctor for something so small. The good was gentle relief for a stopped-up ear from something already on the shelf. Now the honest and important cautions, spoken plainly, because the ear is delicate. This was only ever for a mild wax buildup in a healthy ear, never for an ear that hurt, drained, or might have a hole in the drum, and never for a child with tubes in the ears, any of which meant hands off and a call to the doctor. A stubborn blockage, or any real ear pain, was always the doctor's job and not the cabinet's. For the simple stopped-up ear, though, a few drops brought relief. Did somebody in your family put drops in a plugged ear this way? And do you remember the strange fizzing crackle of it as you lay there waiting? Number 5. The vinegar in Grandma's kitchen, the pickles and the canning. Long before vinegar was a cleaning trick, it was the heart of a kitchen's whole way of keeping food. And no list of why we want it back would be honest without this. In late summer, when the garden came in all at once, the vinegar jug turned the harvest into something that would last the winter. Cucumbers became pickles in a crock or a row of sealed jars, and vinegar's acid was the very thing that preserved them, holding off spoilage and keeping the vegetables good and crisp for months in a cool cellar. Beets, peppers, onions, watermelon rind, and green beans all went into the brine, and the pantry shelves filled up with the colors of the summer garden held safe in glass. This was the deepest, oldest use of vinegar, older than any cleaning tip, tying it to the whole tradition of putting food. By that kept families fed through the cold months. The good was a winter's worth of food, saved from a summer's garden, and flavor and variety on the table when nothing fresh grew. The work of it was real, the hot kitchens on canning day, the care to do it right so the seals held and the food stayed safe. But the reward was a full cellar and the pride of a harvest kept. Did the smell of pickling vinegar and a hot canning kitchen mean late summer in your family? Jars lined up on the counter waiting to be filled and sealed. Number 4. The vaporizer on the nightstand, breathing easy through a fever. When you were a child down with a bad cold or the flu, running a fever, and unable to breathe through a stuffed-up nose, one of the great comforts was the steam, and Vicks was at the center of it. A spoonful of it stirred into the steam vaporizer that ran on the nightstand, or a bit rubbed on the chest, filled the dark bedroom with that thick menthol fog, and every breath you drew felt a little easier and a little less frightening. The menthol gave the feeling of a clearer nose and an open chest, and the warm steam soothed a raw throat and a tight cough. So a miserable, sleepless night became one you could rest through. This was sickroom comfort at its most tender. A parent setting up the vaporizer and checking on you through the night. The good was real ease and real rest for a sick child, and the priceless feeling of being watched over. The honest cautions belong here too. You never heated the jar itself over a flame, only used it as the vaporizer was meant to be used, and the strong menthol was kept away from the littlest babies, for whom it was never safe. A high fever that climbed or held was always a matter for the doctor, not the nightstand, but for the ordinary bad cold of childhood. That menthol steam and the parent who set it up meant comfort. Do you remember lying in the menthol fog of a running vaporizer, breathing easier, knowing somebody was awake and looking after you? Number 3. The baking soda bath that carried a family through the chicken pox. Ask anyone who raised children before the chicken pox was something you could prevent, and they will remember the misery of it. A child covered head to toe in maddening, itching spots, crying and clawing at their own skin, unable to sleep. And they will remember the thing that helped, the baking soda bath. You ran a cool, shallow bath, poured in a good measure of baking soda, and set the itching child in it to soak. And for a little while the worst of the itch let go, and the crying eased. The mild soda soothed the inflamed, itching skin all over the body at once, calming the maddening urge to scratch that could scar a child for life. Through the chicken pox, the measles, the heat rashes, and the poison ivy of childhood, this soak was the mercy a parent could offer, cheap and gentle and always ready. The good was real relief for a suffering child, and a few hours of peace for the whole exhausted household. The honest word is that it soothed the itch, but did not cure the illness. And a fever that ran high, or a child who took a bad turn, always meant the doctor. You kept the bath cool, and watched the little ones every second in the water. But for the long, itching nights of a childhood illness, that soothing bath was a parent's kindness in a box. Do you remember a baking soda bath drawn for you when you were covered in spots, or drawing one yourself for your own children through a hard week of the pox? Number 2. The clean, cared-for home that these plain things built. Step back and look at the whole cabinet now, the box and the jug and the 2 bottles, and you see they were never really about cleaning at all. They were how a mother and a grandmother poured care into a home with the little money there was. The counters wiped down with vinegar, the carpets freshened with soda, the wash brightened, the sick room tended, the whole house made clean and safe and sweet-smelling. All of it done quietly by hand, with a few cheap things off the shelf, and a great deal of love that never announced itself. That is what these hacks really were. The daily, unglamorous work of somebody making a home out of very little and making it well. The good was a whole life's worth of clean sheets and fresh rooms and tended hurts, given freely and asked about by no one. The heart of it, the honest part, was that this work mostly went unseen and unthanked. The endless rounds of a woman who kept everything running, while everybody else simply lived in the comfort she made. We miss these plain things partly because we miss her, and the world she kept clean and whole around us. A home that always smelled cared for and safe. When you smell vinegar on a rag, or open a fresh box of baking soda now, does it bring back the person in your family whose hands kept your whole world clean and cared for? Number 1. Vicks rubbed on your chest at bedtime when you were sick. And here at the very top is the one nobody who lived it will ever forget. You were small and you were sick, burning with fever or worn out with a cough, and the day would end with a parent or a grandparent sitting on the edge of your bed in the lamplight, opening that blue jar and rubbing the Vicks gently onto your chest with their bare hand. The smell filled the room, The warmth spread across your chest, your stuffed nose loosened enough to breathe, and you drifted off knowing, all the way down, that you were safe, and you were loved and somebody was taking care of you. That was the whole magic of it. The menthol and the camphor easing your breathing and your cough. Yes, but far more than that, the hands. The pause in a busy grown-up's night to tend to you. The quiet ritual that said you matter. You will be all right. I am right here. Every honest caution we have said still holds. No heeding the jar. None of it for the tiniest babies. A doctor for a fever that climbs. But no caution can touch what this meant. Grown men and women who lost those parents long ago will open a jar of Vicks today just to smell it. And be, for one moment, a cared-for child again in a lamplit room. That is why it sits at number 1. Whose hands rubbed the Vicks on your chest when you were little and sick? And what would you give to feel them tuck you in one more time? That is our countdown. 100 old-time cabinet hacks from the days when a box, a jug, and 2 brown bottles could clean a whole house, tend a whole family, and carry you through a hard winter. If you are anything like me, you did not just recognize these. You could smell them, and you could see the kitchen and the hands that used them. So do me a kindness. Tell me down in the comments which one took you all the way back. The vinegar rinse, the baking soda bath, the brown bottle on a summer scrape, or the Vicks rubbed on your chest at bedtime. And tell me whose hands you thought of while you listened. If sitting with these memories was good company tonight, give this a like so more folks like us can find it. And subscribe to stay close, because we will keep remembering this world together, one story at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me. Now go rest easy.